Okay, we're all ready. Why don't I call this city council meeting to order? I'd like to welcome everybody aboard. Um, as we usually begin, we do the invocation, the pledge of allegiance. Before I start with that, I want to announce that if you're here to speak to the city council on a public comment portion, you'll fill out the speaker's card, which some people are doing on my left, and you'll submit it to Mike Diaz over here on the right. If you're on Zoom, you want to speak, just raise your hand to speak. We're going to try to, as soon as we start public comments, we're going to limit it to that point, meaning no more speakers. We also have two public hearing items. If you wish to speak on a public hearing item, you'll also indicate that, and you either raise your hand. Don't raise your hand now. You raise your hand later for a public hearing item, and you can also submit the white speaker card if you wish to speak on a public hearing item, separate from the public comment. If you're here to speak on any of the consent calendar items, you can also indicate that on your white card, and also raise your hand if you would like to speak on a item on the consent calendar. So I'm going to ask that the city clerk at this time introduce the individuals who will be doing the invocation and the pledge of allegiance.
Tonight's invocation will be given by Maggie Yanoki of Monte Vista Unitarian Universalist Congregation, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Lopez.
Great. Please stand. Nice seeing you again, Maggie. That's Maggie.
Gathered in this space of community service, we invite the Spirit of life to come and enliven and guide us with a fresh vision of both the blessings that come with public service and also the hard work we're here to accomplish together. May we honor the ancestors of this land and those descendants yet to come with our integrity and our love for this place we know is home. May each and every individual in our city, no matter their social location, find warm welcome and deep belonging here among us. And may all of our actions bring us closer to a better way of life for all. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me as we recite the pledge of one of the world's greatest symbols of freedom. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez. Here. Councilmember Rue.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
I'm here.
And Mayor Dutray.
Present.
Thank you.
So tonight, we're going to present new and promoting police department employees. I want to ask our Chief of Police, Jason Reed, to come on down. I'm going to ask the council to join. Please join me on the bottom.
Good evening, members of council, city staff, and city manager Starr. It's my pleasure once again to be introducing a lateral police officer as a new employee at the police department. So without further ado, Officer Ricky Gillian, come on down. A little bit about Officer Julian. Ricky and his family moved to Southern California from Miami, Florida 2 years ago. He's joined by his longtime girlfriend, Leela, and their 6-year-old son, Dallas. One of the highlights for Ricky prior to joining law enforcement is that he spent a lot of time as a high school strength and conditioning coach in Miami. Ricky earned an associate's degree in hospitality management and travel and tourism and a bachelor's degree in supervision and management from Miami-Dade College. In his free time, Ricky enjoys spending time with his family, of course, and traveling, exercising, and the outdoor life. He knows very little about hiking and camping, but he hopes to not get his family lost when they finally plan their first outing out here, and that's his words. So we did say this morning that we're not a flat country out here. This isn't flat country out here. There's mountains and streams, so please be careful out here. Also, the temperature does get below 81 degrees. That's something they might not know. I'm just kidding. So, in his spare time, Officer Julian also helps coach his son's sports teams throughout the year, and he's excited to finally be part of such an amazing department and team here at the City of Montclair. And he thanks everyone here for their warm embrace and welcoming him. He's a graduate of 2022 Rio Hondo Police Academy, and he's hit the ground running. I already hear him talking on the radio out there and handling calls for service. So again, I give you Officer Ricky Julian. Right. That's it. I'm also very proud to announce with our movement at the PD and command staff level, with the promotion of Captain Ventura, created a vacancy for lieutenant, and very recently Lieutenant Michael Zur was promoted. So Mike Zur, come on up, promoted to police lieutenant. Lieutenant Mike Zur began his career at Montclair PD in April of 2001 after graduating from the Rio Hondo Police Academy as an officer. Lieutenant Zur worked for a variety of assignments, including patrol, field training officer, problem-oriented policing team, narcotics investigator, and detective, where he was assigned to investigate crimes against children and sex crimes. In August 2013, Lieutenant Zur was promoted to sergeant, where his assignments included the supervision of patrol, major accident investigation team, crime suppression unit, and the detective bureau. One of the main things he also has been supervising since the implementation of this hiring bonus and this hiring spree is the field training program, and he's managed that obviously he managed that very well, all the different schedules, the different trainers, and everything else. He's a graduate of the Sherman Block Leadership Institute, also known as SLI Class 411, and is currently pursuing his Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. In February 2024, Lieutenant Zur was promoted to lieutenant. His responsibilities now include the management of patrol, mobile field force, field training program as a lieutenant now, the Police Explorer program, the traffic division, recruitment, community relations, and we all know that there's 100 other things that you've already been assigned. Lieutenant Zur is proud to serve the Montclair community as a member of its police department. Looks forward to many more years of service with the City of Montclair. I believe one of Mike's biggest accomplishments, as he has many accomplishments here at the PD, was his supervision of the Detective Bureau over the last several years. The Detective Bureau did some things that larger agencies aren't even capable of doing. He was able to take a lot of different personalities in there, a lot of major crimes, organize and get things handled, and resulted in, I believe, a 100% homicide rate solvability for the homicides, and we arrested all of the members that committed homicides in our city. That's only one thing that you did in your storied career. But again, congratulations to Lieutenant Mike Zur. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. So if you want to stick around, you can stick around. If you want to leave, you can leave as well. This is a good time. Before we go into our next item on the agenda, which is now the public comment portion of the agenda. This is an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on items that are not on the agenda or request to speak on consent calendar or business items on the agenda, with the exception of the public hearing item that will be separate. Speakers will have up to 5 minutes to address the City Council under the public comment section for non-agenda items, and up to 5 minutes for comment on one more of the consent calendar items. If you're in the audience, please complete a speaker card and place it on the box. So if you wish to speak. If you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function to request to speak. If you're on the phone, please dial the *9 to request to speak. Once called, you must unmute your microphone on Zoom or dial *6 to unmute your phone. I want to make this very clear. Under the Brown Act, the city council is prohibited from discussing or taking any action on any items that is not on the agenda. So I'm going to ask the city clerk at this time, how many speakers do you have?
So I have 11 cards in the council chambers, and there are 10 hands on Zoom raised.
I'm sorry, 10?
10 on
So
Zoom.
that's, we have 21 speakers. So I'm going to ask my council members, I know we have there's an item that's going to be spoken by probably 90% of the speakers that is not even on the agenda. I know we have some business items on the agenda to speak. So do you want to have 5 minutes? And that's we're going to be here for about an hour and almost 2 hours, listen to speakers, or do you want to reduce it down to 3 minutes a speaker?
I'm indifferent to either way, but I'll go with the general consensus of council.
Okay, yeah, me and my left, 3 minutes, 5 minutes?
I concur with Councilmember Ruth. 3 minutes should be sufficient.
All right, you okay with that, City Attorney Robbins, or, okay. Then because of the number of speakers we have, 21 speakers, and most city councils, we're the exception. Most city council usually have 3 minutes anyways. We're the exception with 5 minutes. So we will limiting comments this evening to 3 minutes. I believe that also applies to public hearing items, Diane, the city attorney, Robbins? That will also apply to public hearing items as well for 3 minutes? Okay. So all public comments tonight, including public hearing items, will be at 3 minutes then. So at this time, I'm going to ask the city clerk, I think we'll start with speakers, if I'm correct, city clerk, from the audience. And then I want to also ask that since we have 21 people, we limit to 21, and we will start with the first speaker from the audience and then go to Zoom after that.
Our first speaker is Benjamin Wood.
Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff, and our beloved community. It's been a while, so it's good to see you again, most of you, that is. My name is Benjamin Wood, and I've been living here in the city of Montclair for about 15 years. I'm a community activist, and most of my work has been focused on immigrant rights, housing justice, police accountability, these kind of issues. But you know, like they say on TikTok, I'm an activist. Of course, I believe that Palestinians have human rights. So I'm here tonight to speak about the situation in the Middle East and encourage you to agendize a resolution in support of a ceasefire. My family is one of the families in Montclair and in the general area who are just heartsick, just devastated when we watch the news and when we see the impact of our tax dollars in the form of money and weapons and diplomatic cover on the community in the Gaza Strip. I'm sure you all know that over 30,000 individuals have been killed since the outbreak of hostilities on October 7th, with over 12,000 of them being children. And that hospitals, schools, mosques, and churches have all been targeted in violation of international law and laws of war. That humanitarian aid has been largely blocked, and people have started to succumb to starvation. People who believe in peace have started to become desperate. We've pleaded with our president, with the State Department, with our members of Congress, but the weapons continue to flow. That's why the grassroots movement for peace has resorted to this tactic of getting our local cities and counties to pass resolutions in support of ceasefire, being able to believe that our government is responsive to the community and that our voices matter helps prevent extreme acts of protest, like the one that took the life of Airman Aaron Bushnell last week. We're here tonight to ask you to join the over 70 cities, including major cities such as Chicago and Seattle, but also including neighboring cities like Pomona, who passed resolutions in support of ceasefire. I have a copy of Pomona's resolution here. It's very straightforward, very simple. I'd like to leave it with your clerk, if I may, so that you can have an example to guide you, if you so choose. I know sometimes people feel like the Middle East is too complicated an issue and it's been going on too long. They feel like they can't speak cogently on the topic. But regardless of your level of understanding, it's clear. Peace is the solution. We call on your leadership tonight to agendize a ceasefire item for your upcoming meeting. The children of Gaza and your own community need it.
I actually forgot to read about our written comments that we received. So the city received written comments via email from Jaka Hayavi, Miriam Roham, Limor Geld, Ariella Caspi Canetti, and Mika Efros in opposition to considering a local ceasefire resolution in relation to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict due to concerns about promoting anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli sentiments. The city received a written comment via email from Lyron Canetti requesting the city council formally denounce the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel or pass a resolution reaffirming commitment to exclusively local governments with an emphasis on local and immediate needs of the community. So we'll continue with the,
Before we go on, I see Ruby Long with Supervisor Hagman's office. I assume she's got an announcement. Maybe we go with her next, and then this way she can.
okay, Ruby?
Ruby, you there?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you for letting me go right now. I just wanted to make an announcement, like you said, just to do a quick reminder that not this Saturday, but next Saturday, March 16th, we're going to be having our shredding event right there in Montclair at the City Hall. And once again, it's from 9 a.m. to noon, and it's a free event. And we just ask that you have 3 standard boxes per car. Right now, registration is open, so you can go on our website, and you can also just Google Montclair shredding event, and it'll pop up for the Evite for you to go ahead and register. And like that, it's faster for you to just get through the line and get your paper shredded. They will be shredded right there in front of you, so no worries on that. And yeah, so it's a free event. We hope to see you there.
Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you.
Okay, and our next speaker in the council chambers is Jacob Hayavi.
And who is the speaker after that, Andrea, so they know in advance?
After that will be Rabbi Shalom
Okay.
Harlake.
Great. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council Member. I'm here to oppose to putting this item on the agenda for many reasons. I'm a surgeon in the community. I have privileges here at Montclair Hospital. I've treated patients in need regardless of their background, religion, race, or color. I am deeply concerned that the proposal for the ceasefire will divide our community. Similar proposals have been brought to other cities adjacent like Claremont and Chino Hills, and they've been rejected. The proposal on its face seems harmless, but it is part of a wider plan to designate Israel as an apartheid state and implement policies promoting boycott, divestment, and sanctions. These types of policies create nothing but division within the city. They are contrary to the mission of the city council. Furthermore, it will promote division and anti-Semitism within the community. There have been a few incidents of anti-Semitism already in middle school and high school, where Jewish kids have been subject to anti-Semitic texts, Nazi salutes, swastikas drawn on their tables and notebooks. Anti-Semitism has grown by 800% globally since October 7th atrocities by Hamas. No one likes wars. We want peace as well. And Israel has been trying to negotiate a ceasefire for weeks now, but Hamas has rejected the last 3 proposals. I think the way to peace is to return our kidnapped citizens, the kidnapped citizens of Israel, and there will be peace. It's that simple. A resolution here in the city has no impact on the decision of the federal government. The decisions here should impact the city locally. Furthermore, if you're going to decide to put this on the agenda and pass a resolution, then I would think that you would want to address other atrocities and genocide taking place in the world, like atrocities in Syria, Darfur, executions in Iran, Afghanistan, Yemen, the war in Ukraine with Russia. There's a lot that's going on in the world, but that's not your business, right? This is not what the city council job is. The city council job is to take care of the local community. Our opponents will argue that global problems are local concerns, and they oppose the financial aid given to Israel by America. The fact is that Israel uses the money to defend its citizens, whereas the Palestinians, and specifically Hamas, get millions of dollars from the US, European Union, Qatar, and other states and instead of using it to improve the lives of their citizens, they build terror tunnels, weapons, missiles to attack civilians in Israel. It is mind-boggling to me that Hamas leaders are each worth several $billion and they sit in Qatar hotels while their people in Gaza are suffering. If they really cared
Thank you,
about
sir.
the
Thank you,
Gazans,
sir. Your 3
they
minutes
would
is up.
help to improve
Thank
their
you.
lives.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right, next is Rabbi Shalom Harlig, followed by Loni Marion.
Hello, sir.
Hi,
Rabbi.
yeah, hi, City Council, Mayor, and all the city staff, and the police departments, and all the other people that are here. My name is Rabbi Shalom Harlik. I wasn't really planning to speak till I walked in, and then people said I should say a few words, so I will say a few words. I'm a rabbi for 35 years in the community, helping people from all different kind of backgrounds, from all different kind of religions, and we're helping them without asking them any questions. But as a rabbi, I would like to let you know that in the community here, anti-Semitism is growing every single day. We have to do everything we could to stop it. And throughout the whole history, if I heard from my grandparents who were Holocaust survivors, everybody blamed the Jews all the different years for all the different things, and nothing really has changed. And as we have the holiday of Passover coming up in a few weeks, it says in there that for every single generation, different people come to destroy the Jewish people. At the end, God watches us and God protects us. And as we have all the beautiful men and women from the city of Montclair, as a rabbi, I want to give you all the blessings that each one of you should succeed with all your decisions more than 100%, that God should bless you. And what does it mean more than 100%? Even things you don't ask by God to bless you for, even things that you don't think God is going to give you, God should give you that you should succeed with all your decisions. And as we know, as a city, we have to keep everything local. There's atrocities all over the world. And as a city, we don't speak about all the other countries, whatever is going on. And it's interesting story, I guess, that in a lot of Muslim countries, it's top secret, but I guess I could say it in codes. When Muslims wanted to get out of certain countries, there was Jewish organizations that helped them get out there to come to freedom. And that's what we really have to remember, that we have to protect the Jewish people, we have to protect all the other minorities, and as a city, that's what we have to try to do. And now I'd like to finish with a song, goes like this. David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayam. David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayam. David Melech Yisrael Chai Chai V'Kayam. Thank you very much for listening. All the blessings. And Judaism believes in the merit of all the good deeds each one of us is going to do. That's how we fight real problems in the world, because the good deeds is our light. Just like when you walk in the room is dark, you have to switch on the light, and by switching on the light, you get rid of all the darkness. You don't have to take a stick to guide, and that's what it's all about. We can do goodness and make the world a better place, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Appreciate it.
The next speaker is Loni Marion, and after that is Edna Zobery.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Since the October 7 Hamas attacks on Israel, our Jewish community has been feeling deeply isolated in our profound grief. In our towns, we have seen hostage signs defaced and destroyed, aggressive and anti-Semitic chants in public demonstrations, and rampant misinformation about Jews, as well as Israel, that has caused unprecedented levels of anti-Semitism in our community. Don't be manipulated, please. This proposal is rooted in anti-Semitism, which has grown 800% since the October 7 Hamas attacks on Israel. Our Jewish community has not only been feeling deeply isolated and our profound grief due to hostage signs, including women and pictures of children and babies being defaced and destroyed but aggressive and anti-Semitic chants in public demonstrations and personal attacks on our Jewish residents and citizens at markets and public places, as well as the schools, based on misinformation about Jews and Israel that's caused the unprecedented levels of anti-Semitism in our community. Don't be manipulated by this misinformation. Israel has agreed to a ceasefire based on the work of Qatar, Egypt, and the United States. It's Hamas that has refused to agree to the ceasefire. It's Hamas who has refused to release all of the hostages that they brutally kidnapped from their homes and towns in Israel when they murdered Israelis, not just Jews, but Muslims also. Similar proposals have been brought to other city councils and have been rejected by those city councils. Furthermore, this kind of resolution will promote division and anti-Semitism within the community. For example, there have been a few incidents of anti-Semitism in middle schools and in high schools where Jewish kids, as well as college students, have been subject to anti-Semitic texts, Nazi salutes, swastikas, and profanity against them. This has also happened in the colleges. Hamas started the war on October 7th. Israel has been trying to negotiate a ceasefire and a return to peace, but not if it means a restored status quo and continued cycle of death and destruction of Israelis as well as Gazans. Local governments, such as your city council, really has no power.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Edna Sobery, followed by Margaret Colwell.
Go ahead,
Hi.
thank you.
Hi, thank
Welcome
you
aboard.
for listening to me. I don't want to discuss the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the war between them. I don't think that the city of Montclair needs to discuss this issue since it is an international issue and has nothing to do with Montclair and can only raise the anti-Semitism and the hates in the city. I bet that Montclair City Council, you, has enough issues, local issues, on your table to work on it. So I think that local things need to stay local. International things shouldn't be your business or your concern. We have smarter people than us, obviously me, that trying to solve this conflict, and I think that we should let them deal with this issue. We don't want to bring it to our cities in the United States. That's it.
Right,
Thank
you very much.
I thank you for your time. Thank you.
All right,
All right,
next
our
speaker,
next
please.
speaker is Margaret Colwell.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Margaret Caldwell. I've been a member of this community for 30 years. I've raised 4 children in this area, and I consider it my home. I'm here tonight to add my voice to the many that are demanding that the city of Montclair pass a ceasefire resolution to end the discriminate bombing in Gaza. The people of this community need to see you stand firm against genocide. The people of Palestine are and have been subjected to apartheid for decades, and Israel has been able to do this unchecked. What our government is doing now, supporting Israel unconditionally, is not what this community wants. Our tax dollars are being used to commit war crimes, and that's unacceptable. You are supposed to represent your community. This community wants you to pass the ceasefire resolution and divest from businesses that support apartheid. The tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians killed by Israel with their bombing and sniper fire, along with forced starvation, is not what this community supports. We all know that these types of crimes have been committed before by colonial powers, but never have we seen the truth in real time on our devices. We can no longer just accept the version that our media feeds us. We see the truth. We see it, you see it. I struggled at first. Do they know? Are they willingly turning away? Are they bought and paid for politicians? Are they monsters just like the ones we see on our screens? I don't know what the answer is. This community needs you. Do the right thing and stand on the side of humanity. Pass the resolution for a ceasefire. Show the people of Montclair and the rest of the world who you are. I want to leave you with these three things. Doing nothing is complicit. Standing on the fence or both siding this will speak louder than you think. And we hear what you say and what you don't say. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, next is Jose Perez, followed by Tuan Nguyen.
Good evening again.
Evening.
I want to speak on the safe routes to school and the construction and redesign of that intersection. I would like to see for it to be on a prioritized list of getting that redesigned due to the fact that there's disabled kids, adults, juveniles, students use that intersection. Striping was done, stop signs were installed. All that helped, all that was great. But I would like to see change in that intersection as my home being a part of Safe Routes to School. Let's just complete this action that I've been knocking on the doors for several years trying to get this issue resolved. And I still haven't seen anything done. This was a big help, putting the signs up, striping. Chief Engineer, Ms. Heredia helped. Ben Lopez pushed the issue. Ms. Denise Johnson said she would help. Norma Torres said she would help creating funding. I would just like for this issue to get resolved and put as a priority list for the community, for the students, for residents, and for my home being a safe route to school. And moving forward, the kids is the future of Montclair. Thank you guys for your time. God bless you.
As I said before, I would suggest send us communication to the city clerk's office, put what you requested in, she'll make sure we get a copy of it, and we'll make sure our staff looks at it, and there's a response to it. Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please.
All right, next is Tuan Nguyen, followed by Nicole.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and residents. Today, I am asking again for the city of Montclair to pass a ceasefire resolution regarding Israel's deadly assault on Palestine and the Palestinian people of Gaza. Let's start by putting a discussion for the resolution on the agenda, and I'm pleading to you, Denise Johnson, and to you, Councilmember Carissa, to motion and second motion this. How many goddamn conversation and closed-door meetings have you had for Ben Lopez, but yet you can't have...
Hold on, no, excuse me. Watch your language, okay? This is a professional meeting here.
Okay. Since we're in a professional meetings, how many meetings have you had about the sexual assault and the $700,000 that Ben Lopez has cost us, but you can't have one meeting about a ceasefire resolution to put this on the agenda? So if you can have that many meetings for this man over here, you can have at least one meeting to put this on the agenda. A local ceasefire does have symbolic importance for local cities like ours because it sends a message that Montclair does not tolerate hatred for Palestinians or anyone of Arab descent. And as I indicated 2 weeks ago, various news reports, along with data collected by the Council of American Islamic Relations, show that we have seen a rise in anti-Arab and Islamophobic incidents across the US. In October, a child was stabbed 20-something times fatally, and his mother was also critically stabbed. In November, 3 Vermont students were shot who were of Palestinian descent. A month ago, a Palestinian man was also stabbed. And then, of course, we had an U.S. airman who committed suicide out of protest for this. So broader conflicts does influence incidents like those we have seen locally and with deadly results. So cities must speak up on these matters. What may appear to be international can have tremendous local repercussions. And for those of you who's asking, what about Jewish people? Yes, we can condemn anti-Semitism while supporting Palestinian people. These two things are not mutually exclusive. So if they want us to condemn Hamas in the ceasefire, but then condemn Israel ongoing genocidal warfare as well. If they want to stand if we want to condemn anti-Semitism, we should do that as well, but also condemn Islamophobia in our ceasefire resolution. And I also find it really disingenuous for some folks who come up here and saying, oh, why aren't we talking about other atrocity? Why haven't you? You haven't been here. I haven't seen you stand up on this podium talking about these issues. You only come out tonight because we're demanding something that you're against. And this idea that, oh, return 110 kidnaps people, that's like me killing your family, Carissa, and your response is to bomb my whole neighborhood, plus the next door neighbor, plus Montclair High School, plus the hospital. And that's what Israel has been doing. There is a disproportionate response. So please, put this on the agenda, discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker, please.
All right, next is Nicole, followed by Julian Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and Montclair community. My family has lived in Montclair for about 12 years now, and tonight I stand before you as an educator, a taxpayer, a mother, as someone who was raised with Christian values, and simply as a human being who deeply believes in freedom and justice for all people. I'm here tonight because I am completely abhorred and devastated at what I have witnessed taking place in occupied Palestine for the last 150 days, a horrific genocide and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. It's important to recognize that while many Americans just started paying attention to this conflict when Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, many are unaware that Palestinians have experienced barbaric violence by the terrorist state of Israel for decades. Unfortunately, the Western media has largely left out important context, and this is that the Palestinians have been living under an apartheid regime and under an illegal Israeli occupation for decades. As Americans, we say that freedom is one of our highest values, and if this is true, then why are we not supporting the freedom of Palestinian people? The American government had no issues supporting Ukrainians in their plight for liberation, but with Palestinians, we see the government not only failing to support them, but actively contributing towards their barbaric genocide. Over 30,000 Palestinians have now been murdered in Gaza. 70% children, over 100 journalists have been murdered. Hospitals, schools, refugee camps bombed. People are starving, children are freezing. Humanitarian aid is not being allowed. These are war crimes being committed every single day, and all of this is happening because our government sends billions of our American tax dollars to fund genocide. Over 150 nations across the globe have publicly called for a permanent ceasefire. The majority of Americans are also in support of a ceasefire. The American government is ignoring the will of the American people and the international community, and this is why people like ourselves are now organizing protests and demonstrations across the nation and in their local communities. Because national leadership is failing us, we turn to you, our local leaders, and ask you to please help raise our voices. We call for the full liberation of the Palestinian people. The first step to peace is a permanent ceasefire resolution. Other city councils have already had the courage to do this, and we urge the city of Montclair to have the same courage. Please put a ceasefire resolution on the next city council agenda so that we can have a democratic discussion about it. Respectfully, to respond to some of the comments earlier, I respectfully disagree that this isn't city business. I think genocide should be every human being that has any kind of conscience. It should be all of our business, right? One genocide does not justify another genocide. So we want Montclair to be a city that demonstrates strong moral courage and supports freedom and justice for all people. Please add a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next speaker is Julian Gonzalez, followed by Abraham.
Julian Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Julian Gonzalez. I go to Montclair High School right down the street over there. And I have been going to city council meetings trying to fight for ceasefire resolutions at meetings for like Claremont, Pomona, and Chino. But places like Claremont and Chino, however, like to argue that this is not a local issue. But I have seen teachers, students, seniors, and even children give their time to speak on this genocide taking place in Palestine. I have heard their poems. I have seen their drawings of children drawing their houses on fire. I have heard their nightmares and seen people gather together to speak on how it tears them apart. I know this ceasefire resolution is possible to accomplish because we did it in Pomona, and to my knowledge, that was the first place in this area to do so. If Pomona can do this when no one else did, Montclair can do it when the path was already paved. We are beyond frustrated with ignorance. This is real. It is happening. We cannot see it because we are distracted by pleasures and privileges, but every day we wait is more family, more children, and more homes destroyed in hate. We ask you to not be the first, but also be the example for future cities to consider this resolution so that we may continue our efforts on larger scales and make a difference. By choosing to do nothing, you are failing basic human empathy, you are failing your citizens, you are failing society, and you deserve shame. Every day we wait, every time we push the ceasefire resolution back is a missed opportunity to save lives. Even while I speak, people still suffer, people still die, people that are being harmed by our funding, by our weapons, by our neutrality. I know there might not be a lot of people here today, but believe me, when we will vote, we will boycott, we will organize, we will remember, and we will be back with more people each time it takes. The opponent likes to argue, although, that this ceasefire will divide the community and cause anti-Semitism. But they never have any evidence. Where is the divide in Pomona? Where is the anti-Semitism? I haven't seen any of this at school or anywhere else in my community. They are using fear tactics on baseless lies, and they like to argue, a lot of city council members, they always say, well, this is a problem for the federal government. We're federal. It goes from city to state to the whole nation. It starts with us. It started with Pomona. We can start with Montclair too, then we'll move to Claremont, then we'll move to Chino, then we'll move to Ontario. Eventually, it'll be a statewide thing, and it'll go from state to state to state. Eventually, if you work with us and listen to us and hear our voices, this can be something we can accomplish. And they like to say, why don't we take part in other atrocities? What's stopping us? There's nothing stopping us. Everyone is willing to. This is just because we haven't before doesn't mean we shouldn't now. Things start with change, and we could either be a part of that or just let things happen out of our control. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next speaker is Abraham, and then followed by our first Zoom speaker.
First, okay.
That's going to be Fred Luchter.
Good evening. My name is Avraham. I'm a Jewish American, and some of my ancestors escaped the Holocaust, but many did not. And I would like to say that many who perished in the Holocaust were in fact turned away in America by those who also only wanted to stick to local matters too. Tonight, I call for the city to pass a ceasefire resolution. Let me dispatch a myth for you guys right now. Israel isn't Jewish. The destruction Israel is causing is the antithesis of Judaism. Israeli military's invasion of Gaza is not defense, it's collective punishment. It is to say the military is deliberately targeting civilians, over 2 million people, until its goals are met. It is deliberate murder. The president and the vice president have signed off on this, but you know what? It is terrorism. None of you would ever accept this for any country. If it was European country, like, I don't know, Ukraine, you would never allow it. You would never be silent on it, only because it is Palestine. Nothing anyone can say or do. The terrorism Israel is causing, it cannot be allowed, and America is paying for it. Some say that there can only be ceasefire of hostages, all hostages are returned. Well, what about the Palestinian hostages Israel has taken before October 7th? There are thousands of them. Many of them are children. Where's the outrage for them? They have committed no crimes, only that they are Palestinian and Israel wants their land. Why is violence justified for Israel's hostages, but violence for the rescue of Palestinian hostages unjustified? When will Israel stop the collective punishment? When all the hostages are rescued? Please, this is a joke. The entire area has been bombed, every square inch. There has been no concern for hostages. Israeli ministers and leaders are arrogant on the radio, talking about how the hostages are not the goal. They think you are not listening or that you don't care. Are they right? If America bombed the Taliban for 20 years and the Taliban remain, how will Israel dispatch of Hamas this way? By bombing and murdering civilians? They won't, and they know it. It is not the goal. What are the real goals of this counter October 7th erasure of Gaza? I'll tell you, colonialization and industrialization, settlements and fossil fuel extraction. Everyone knows it. Everyone's afraid to say it. Israel didn't destroy Gaza over hostages. America isn't backing Israel so aggressively over hostages. The West goes to war for oil and gas, for fracking and drilling. There's gas in Gaza, and Israel and America want it. The world has had enough. Americans have had enough. This is genocide. Everyone can see. They want the land for settlements and for industry. They are erasing all Palestinian life, all infrastructure. We all just watched Israel shoot and maim 1,000 starving Palestinians, hoping to get flour. This is not an accident. It is disgraceful bombing them, starving them. And why? Because they are Palestinian, and Israel says they don't get to exist. Well, they do exist, and they deserve to live. They deserve freedom, justice, reparations. And if Israel says they need to die for Jewish safety, then Israel is wrong. Israel isn't making anyone safe, certainly not any Jews safe. Israel is putting a target on all our backs, every Jewish person worldwide. We can't defend what they are doing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next speaker, please. Oh, now we're on Zoom.
Yes, we're on Zoom now. So our first Zoom speaker is Fred Luchter. So I'm going to go ahead and give him the ability to talk.
Good evening. This is Fred Luchter. Are you guys able to hear me all right?
Yes, you're ready to go. Go ahead.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I wanted to address two speakers ago. I am in support of a ceasefire. 2 speakers ago, he said, well, you know, this will be a local thing. It'll spread across the state, and states will spread it. And from my experience, I haven't seen that to be the case. I don't necessarily think, I know for a fact that, yeah, it'll spread across local cities, which this is a good first step towards ending violence in the Middle East and the murder of innocent Palestinians. But it's not going to spread. A state might pass it. California might. I don't think they will, but it's more likely than the federal government. And the reason I don't think the federal government is going to pass it is Biden's administration or Trump's administration, whoever's it may be, whoever is our next current president, they're not going to do anything. They love Israel. We got people like Janet Yellen, Secretary of the Treasury, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, Alejandro Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security, Avril Haines, Director of National Intelligence, Ron Klain, White House Chief of Staff, Rachel Levine, 4-star Admiral in the Public Health Service, Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State, Wendy Sherman, Deputy Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, Secretary for Political Affairs, Eric Lander, Office of Science and Technology Policy, David S. Cohen, Director of the CIA, Jennifer Pritzker, a Lieutenant Colonel. These are the people that are running our government, and they love Israel. Back to the ceasefire. So I do think that would be a good first step for the city to take. And yeah, I don't think it's going to, it might not do much, but it's sending the right message that we don't support Israeli terrorism. I think we should also go ahead and add in that and point out that Mossad did 9/11, and we don't support that either. Google 5 dancing Israelis, and you'll find out that in New Jersey, right across the water from the Twin Towers, there were 5 Israelis, and they were seen celebrating the 9/11 attacks. And they were driving a van that said Urban Moving Systems on it. It's a Mossad front. So how are we supposed to believe that these hostages are yeah, sure, I do agree that no, Israel doesn't have a right to go in and invade Gaza for a handful of hostages. But even then, how are we supposed
Thank
to
you, sir.
believe
Your
that they
time's up.
fail?
Next speaker, please.
Jews. Heil Hitler.
And I want to say something because that was a discriminatory remark, and I want to say something now on behalf of my colleague, the City Council. We adopted a resolution late last year. I'm just going to read the heading of the resolution because I think it's important that you understand what our viewpoint is when it comes to issues of. I'll just read the resolution. Last year, the City Council adopted Resolution 22-3414. Basically, I'll read the summary of the resolution. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Montclair reaffirming the City of Montclair's commitment to the well-being and safety of all individuals regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, national origin, disability, sex, gender expression, sexual orientation, age, or military or veteran status, and condemning hate crimes and any other forms of racism, religious or ethnic bias, discrimination, incitement of violence, or targeting minorities. I'm going to condemn the last remark that was made. That was discriminative. We'll go on to the next speaker, please.
Right. The next speaker is Rex.
And I also
Egan.
ask, do not use profanity in the City Council meeting. I'll cut you off. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor and council members, I mean. My name is Rex Eden. I request all documents and communications between your council and the Anti-Defamation League be made public. I have with me today the ADL toolkit that was sent to city councils across the nation in an attempt to restrict free speech. Freedom of speech, all speech, is protected by the Constitution and backed by many Supreme Court rulings, which have ruled consistently that free speech cannot be restricted for, quote, hate, which is not a legal exception to the First Amendment. Hate speech is as protected as any speech because opposing political groups often characterize their enemies as being motivated by hate. The Constitution and First Amendment preserve the rights of our citizens to speak out against whatsoever they choose. It is not hateful to point out 96% of American media is controlled by 6 Jewish corporations. It is not hateful to say that over 80% of Joe Biden's cabinet is Jewish. It is not hateful to go to nyc.gov and search oral circumcision, where you'll discover the detestable fact that rabbis molest children by sucking the bloody circumcision wound with their mouth. It is not hateful to tell people to go to gtvflyers.com and europathelastbattle.net to discover the Jewish plot to enslave or exterminate all the Goyim. What is hateful is the Talmud, the preeminent Jewish scriptures that say things like Yevamot 98a, all non-Jew children are animals. Zohar told off Noah 63b, when the Messiah comes, all Jews will have 2,800 slaves. Yalkut 245c, extermination of the Christians is a necessary sacrifice. My ancestors fought and died to protect our civil liberties. We will not stand idly by and watch the continued demoralization and degradation of our race and nation. They are behind the exploitation, the financial exploitation and rape of our people and lands. More than 30 Jewish NGOs are behind our non-existent borders being overrun. The Jewish banking system is coercing the United States government to send billions in aid to protect Israel and Ukraine's border. I call on this council to pass a resolution which reaffirms the Constitution and Bill of Rights as the unadulterated law of the land. The ADL was founded to protect a child-murdering pedophile named Leo Frank in 1913. The ADL is an anti-white hate group comprised of dual citizens whom relentlessly attack the people who founded this nation, Europeans. The Naturalization Act of 1790 states, this land was established as a homeland for Europeans of high moral character. Our council, as well as every other governing body, has no business taking orders from an organization founded on lies to defend a child rapist. Men have shed blood for our civil rights to speak and protest. The ADL will not strip white Americans of the rights our forefathers shed blood to achieve. City councils who follow the anti-American ADL coaching to restrict free speech will pay a price via civil rights lawsuits. The United States will no longer be ruled by a 2% minority instructing our governments to violate citizens' unalienable rights. Jews have been expelled over 1,030 times because they are subversive parasites. The Jewish ADL. Being American is in your...
All right, thank you. That's it. We're done with that. All right. Okay, excuse me. Can I speak, please? I'm going to say something. I'd like to say something first. I know what's going on here. So about 4 months ago, the city of Claremont had a meeting, which they had Zoom like we did, and they suspended eventually. But this meeting, there were probably about 12 or 13 individuals who spoke on Zoom. Who knows where they come from? And unfortunately, they have spoke against the Jewish religion in this matter here. So I have a funny feeling all these speakers I have on Zoom are probably from the same group that's going to make discriminatory remarks to the Jewish community. And I want to say again, we condemn this language. This is, unfortunately, I have to follow the Constitution right now. And probably after this meeting, what's going to happen is, because I'm going to recommend that we will probably have to suspend Zoom meeting, because that's the same thing what the city of Claremont did, but this is unfortunate. So if you want to stick around and listen to this crap, and excuse my language, I shouldn't be using that language here, as I just scold somebody else. You're welcome to stick. If you want to walk out and not listen to this stuff, you feel free, but unfortunately, we have to sit here and listen to this. Am I correct, City Attorney? All right. So I think what I want to do is I want to take about a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back in 5 minutes. Okay? Give everybody a chance.
For us, the people that are in support of a
Yeah.
ceasefire. They're not with us.
No, okay, yeah. So we are officially recessed, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, we're back in session. The city council is back in session. So what we're going to do is, since we have expended almost an hour on public comments, a little less than hours on public comments, we're going to move the rest of the public comments to the end of the agenda. And at this time, we're going to move towards the public hearing items. And I'm going to open up the first public hearing item. Technically, it's already open from the last meeting. And this is to consider ordinance number 24-1007. And I'm going to ask the city clerk, not the city clerk, the city manager to introduce this item. Oh. Mike will be the city clerk.
Yes, our Community Development Director, Mike Diaz, will be doing a PowerPoint presentation regarding this matter.
Ready to go?
Go for it.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Dutray and members of the council. The item before you tonight at this point is the...
Mr. Mayor, if I may interrupt for a moment, I do need to note our city clerk is not in the meeting, and we do need to wait for the city clerk's return.
You're right.
Here she comes.
Okay, for the city clerk's purposes, the meeting's back in order again. We will, instead of continuing on with public comments, we're going to move the remainder of the public comments to the end of the agenda so we can begin to commence with the business items on the agenda. And we'll begin with the public hearing, which is the first item, which is the first reading of consider ordinance number 24-1007, and the public hearing is open.
Okay. The item, as I mentioned earlier tonight, is the T-unit projects and urban lot splits that are related to what is known as Senate Bill 9. Senate Bill 9 is a part of the state's efforts to encourage the production of housing across California. And this particular Senate bill affects Government Code Section, or adds to the Government Code Section 5852.21, which requires ministerial approval of qualifying 2-unit projects within an R1 single-family zone. It also adds Government Code Section 66411.7. This is also for ministerial approval of qualifying urban lot splits within R1 single-family zones. And then finally, it amends Government Code Section 66452.6, and that's the Subdivision Act, which allows jurisdictions to provide by local ordinance up to 24 additional months before an expiration of an approved or conditionally approved tentative map. Okay, so and this, what I'm doing here is basically summarizing what's in the staff report and in the draft proposal that you have, that's ordinance number 2024-07. So the overview of Senate Bill 9, it basically applies, Senate Bill 9 applies only to R1 single-family zones and would allow property owners the option to create up to 4 homes on an existing lot through 2 possible means. One would be through the 2-lot project, and the other means would be through urban lot splits. The law does not change the allowable land uses in the local agency single-family residential zones. So for example, if the local agency single-family zone does not currently allow commercial uses such as hotels or restaurants, SB 9 does not affect that. SB 9 also does not mandate, this is important, owners of single-family properties to make any changes to their respective lots if they don't choose to, if they like what they have and they don't want to make any changes. Senate Bill 9, as I mentioned earlier, mandates ministerial review and approval of city applications for the following changes to the existing R1 single-family residential properties within the city. So this applies to all R1 single-family residential properties. First is a 2-unit project, which means the development of 2 primary homes on a single-family residential lot, and there's no legal requirement for the lot split or the creation of two legal lots in order to do this. The second option, as I mentioned earlier, is called the urban lot split, and this means it's a one-time subdivision of an existing single-family residential parcel into 2 parcels of roughly equal size for the development of a primary unit and on the newly created second lot. Again, the total yield will be 4 units again, that's intended by SB 9. The units creating by using SB 9 are for residential use only. I'll mention this later too, but so if you went through SB urban lot split process, you only get to do it once with the lots you have, ending up with roughly equal size properties. And the intent for the second lot is only for the development of single family or residential units on those lots. So it's not for subdividing the lot to create accessory structures, add a pool, tennis court, do anything else. You only can use this lot for the development of single family or residential units. Let's talk about ministerial review and approval. I mentioned earlier, applications made under the SB 9 must be considered ministerially or by right by the city without discretionary review or a public hearing. So right now, if we do, at least with a parcel map, you would have to go to the Planning Commission and then eventually City Council. Now it's all handled by staff following a perspective or a specific process which is outlined in the ordinance you have there in more detail, and it's handled at staff level. So for this particular purpose, it would not go to the Planning Commission like a traditional subdivision. Ministerial review means a process for development approval involving no personal judgment by the public official as to the wisdom of carrying out the project. So basically, if they meet the criteria, they are entitled to move forward with the proposal. The reviews of applications are limited to basically comparing the plans against the objective development standards and objective design standards, which are in the ordinance. And this proposed ordinance does have objective standards for both of these particular means. Objective standards means standards that involve no personal or subjective judgment by a public official and are published and known by both the applicant and public officials before the submittal of the application. Development standards are things like setbacks, heights, those kinds of things. Subdivision standards are basically minimum lot depths and access in particular to the created new lots. And then there's design standards which basically can dictate things like roof pitch, roof overhang, facade materials, maybe window placement, things like that, so that the designer of these proposed units and or these subdivisions have basically all the information they need in order to comply to meet the requirements of this particular legislation and ordinance. Standards may be applied as long as they do not physically and prevent development of allowed number of units allowed by SB 9. So, did I go backwards or did I go?
Mike, real quickly, could you repeat that last line, please? I'm sorry.
What page am I on? Did I go back? No. Oh, this one here on page 6. Okay. That basically means that if there's a standard in the ordinance, there's a hierarchy of standards that would typically apply to the review of projects, which planners have typically done all our lives. And if you go through the SB 9 process to develop a unit, and you aren't able to get to the minimum allowed by that particular legislation, then you start giving up certain standards in order to allow the applicant to achieve the 800 square foot minimum lots for the 2 units they're allowed to build. So I don't forget how the order is, but typically you let go of a setback, and then you let go of a building height. The next thing you might let go of is a lot coverage standard, et cetera. So that's how when you get to 800, that's kind of where we stop giving in on particular standards that would otherwise apply to a development. Two-unit projects basically means the development of 2 primary dwelling units, or if there's already a primary dwelling unit on the lot, the development of a second primary dwelling unit on an existing legally subdivided lot. So remember earlier I said there's no requirement to subdivide the property, but you can build up to 4 units through the 2-unit project on a site if you choose to go that direction. Only individual property owners may apply for a 2-unit project. Individual property owners means a natural person holding fee title individually or jointly in the person's own name, or a beneficiary of a trust that holds that fee title. The individual property owner does not include any corporation or corporate person of any kind. And those are partnerships, LPs, LLCs, C corps, S corps, et cetera. Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. Got a little. There we are, 8. Right. So the total floor area of the new primary dwelling unit that's built on developed under this section cannot be less than 500 square feet nor more than 800 square feet. Each primary dwelling unit must have at least one enclosed off-street parking space within a garage unless the site meets specific criteria related to public transit, which is detailed in the ordinance and under section or chapter 11-21080. A parcel map, as I mentioned earlier, is not required for this type of development if the existing single lot remains intact and is not subdivided to create 2 legal lots. And a deed restriction is required to prohibit short-term rentals of created units on these particular parcels. SB 9, this is the urban lot split aspect of the SB 9 legislation, and this provides for ministerial or by right approval of a subdivision of an existing R1 lot into separate lots meeting objective division standards. A parcel may only be subdivided once under the government code section stated there, and this provision is intended to prevent an applicant from pursuing multiple urban lot splits over time for the purposes of creating more than 2 lots. SB 9 also does not require the city to approve a lot split if an adjacent lot has been subject to a lot split of the same kind in the past by the same owner or a person working in concert with that same owner. So this is sort of a safeguard for intended to for people buying up properties and working to add units. An application for an urban lot split may receive ministerial approval if the split results in 2 approximately equal-sized lots. 60-40 is probably the biggest differentiation between the 2 lots. Each lot that is created has to be at least 2,000 square feet. The original lot has to be not established through a prior lot, SB 9 lot split. Neither the owner or anyone acting with the owner previously subdivided on an adjacent parcel through SB 9 lot split is eligible. Lots can only be used for, as I mentioned earlier, for residential purposes and development, not for accessory structures, pools, anything else that is not a residential living unit. And this too also requires a deed restriction for the purposes of prohibiting short-term rentals of and use of those of created units. The parcel map under urban lot split needs to be prepared by a licensed civil engineer. This is standard procedure. They have to come up with property descriptions and drawings to meet the requirements for this proposal. The applications are subject to review and approval by the city engineer only, and there is no public hearing that's required for this particular process. So that means in this case, it would be Ms. Heredia who has the responsibility for reviewing it. My only role is to make sure and help her figure out that it's compliant with the specific standards of this section. The urban lot split proposals, as mentioned earlier, are subject to applicable provisions of the California Subdivision Map Act. That has all the requirements for how you prepare plans and maps. The new parcels are required to provide separate utilities, including sewer connections. So that's an important distinction to remember there with urban lot splits. And access from major roadways or across pedestrian, equestrian, or bike trails is actually prohibited by the ordinance. So a picture for council building on that has a perimeter boundary wall of a subdivision on Mission, and suddenly somebody wanted to pop a driveway out the back door, that won't be allowed. Or out the back of the property onto Missionville, it wouldn't be allowed. Another important aspect, a thing you need to remember here is that the fire marshal has review of the parcel map to ensure that access is required for fire emergency purposes. And the cost for that review is a pass-along cost that costs us to have the fire marshal review through our consultants, so the applicants would be responsible for paying for that review as well. And the only way the city can deny a proposed urban lot split proposal would be if the city engineer can make a finding of a specific adverse impact on the public health and safety or the physical environment, and there would be no feasible way of mitigating that particular impact to a point of maybe insignificance or resolving it in some other way. So that's what would be offered in that. What the city cannot do on an urban lot split is impose regulations that would require right-of-way dedications or construction of off-site improvements. And nor can a city require the correction of non-conforming zoning conditions as a condition of ministerial approval of a parcel map application as well. So there are some limits on what the city can do when we're considering urban lot splits, as indicated by these 2 points. So in conclusion, the quick takeaways from the proposed ordinance would be that this ordinance will allow us to be in compliance with state law. The SB 9 applies only, it's important to remember, it only applies to R1 zones in our city, and that this process is optional. It's not a mandate for the property owners to make any changes to their properties. The urban lot splits must comply with the Subdivision Map Act and require fire marshal review. Urban lot splits require separate utility connections, including those for sewer. And the lots created by the urban lot split can only be used for residential purpose and development of housing. If no housing is built, nothing else can be put on that site. And then lastly, a deed restriction is required to prohibit short-term rental of created units on either the two-unit project approach to using this law, or to the short-term the urban lot split means of creating units. There'll be deed restrictions on both of those applications. That would conclude the summary of my of the
Long conversation.
Yeah, of this particular legislation or ordinances before you and the staff report. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer. We also have counsel from Best and Krieger, Abe Sanchez, who can help us with any questions you might have.
All right, do we have members of the public that wish to speak, Andrea?
I don't have any cards for this
Or
particular
submitted to
item.
them? Okay.
So,
Then I'll bring this item back to the city council. Mike, just to clarify this, and I know about SB 9 was adopted 2-3 years ago. I had a conversation with our local assembly member at the time regarding this bill. And basically, we're codifying state law into our municipal code.
Correct.
And I believe there are some minor caveats that state law allows us to do that you've placed into the municipal code here, those caveats. And the advantage, of course, having this in our code is when we have applicants come to the counter, it's in the code, they can see it easily, as opposed to trying to go through the state code and try to find it. And it also makes it easier for our planners and city staff that there's an actual document that's easy to find in our municipal code, as opposed to trying to go through the state code.
That's correct.
And then I understand it's basically when it comes to, it's a ministerial process, so there's no planning commission meeting, there's no city council meeting. Unfortunately, the adjacent residents don't get notified. They don't
They do.
They
They
get
actually do
notified
get-
at the end.
They do get notified.
At the end, when the contractor's supposed to notify them, am I correct? Because the contractor notifies them that there's a project about to happen next door to you, and if you have a complaint about noise, here's a number to contact. Is that the notification you're speaking of? Or is there a notification prior to that?
Yeah, it would be the contractor, as the ordinance indicates.
At the very end, about when construction begins, basically. That's when
Yes,
the
when
notification
construction
plays.
begins and they
Yeah.
get permits, yes.
So they're just told that, by the way, we're getting ready to start construction next door to you, and, oh, it's gonna be 2 units, and so I'll leave that there. I had another question I was about to ask, I can't remember exactly what it is. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of clarifying questions. So I think I might be confusing SB 9 and 10, but I have seen in some communities where a single-family house was purchased, demolished, and then there's a 10-unit multifamily building on that. That's not what we're talking about, correct?
No,
It's
that's
only-
not, yeah.
And, okay.
That's not this one.
I just wanted to clarify that. So, and then the multiple units that are developed are all single-story, correct? Or no?
They start off at single story, but if they need to go to a second story in order to achieve the 800 square foot minimum they're allowed, then they can do if one of our standards would otherwise preclude them from doing that.
Okay. And then my second question, I believe I saw somewhere in the staff report that these units have to have parking spaces in a garage. Did I see that in the report?
Yes, that's part yes, that's part of the,
Okay, so my follow-up question, I'm afraid to know what you're gonna answer, but my follow-up question is, although there have to be garage spaces provided, but do they have to use them to put the vehicle in them, or are they gonna put them on the street and cause more parking problems? So are they gonna use that garage space for storage, or will they be mandated to put a vehicle in it?
well, they're required to provide the parking space and then have it be enclosed. And typically, that's what we would expect, but I don't know.
But we can't mandate it?
Let me let, is that okay? Mr. Sanchez answers that question.
Hi, good evening, council members. Can you hear me?
This way.
I'm Abe Sanchez from Best Western Krieger. Happy to answer that question. In terms of the ordinance requirements, the ordinance just requires that that parking space be built and that it be enclosed. There's unfortunately no way that the city can regulate exactly how that parking garage is used in the future and on an ongoing basis. And the ordinance does not do that, but it does require that the parking space be built and that it be enclosed.
I was afraid that that was going to be the answer. We do have, as we all know, we do have several developments here in town, whether it's a single family or if it's a condo unit or whatever, that all have parking spaces, and then there's almost a war over who can park in front of my house and not park in front of my house. And so we have all experienced some of our Montclair residents who are in great conflict over parking issues, and I was hoping that this might resolve that, but if it doesn't, it doesn't. If we can't, I wish we could mandate it, but if we can't, we can't. That's it. Those are the only questions I had.
Yeah, your comment is in reference to a homeowners association. They can certainly mandate that, but that is not what we are talking about here. These are single-family lots, and they are developing it the way that SB 9 allows them to.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and I guess my question to you, Mike, was, before I go to the next speakers, apologize. My next question to you, Mike, was that you believe that we allow ADUs in Montclair because of state law, California law as well. And what you're saying is a lot of the homeowners are converting their garages into an accessory dwelling unit, or what's formerly called granny unit. That's been the biggest activity you've seen so far. And I believe you told me that you don't expect a whole lot of this SB 9 activity, except with perhaps large residential properties is what more likely will happen, especially in South Montclair.
Well, to answer your question about the ADUs, that's been the predominant activity since that law was passed a few years back, and the easiest way to create an ADU on normal single-family lots is by means of converting the garage. Some people have done detached structures if they have the room for it, and maybe the garage is detached, they might do it in the detached garage. But that's been the predominant activity over time. We've got in recent months or years, had comments or just questions about SB 9 applications, but nobody has come forward with an application. If you read through the ordinance, there's a lot to do in some of these even, so maybe that is one reason why they haven't pursued anything.
Right, and I think you also, and this ordinance basically you have to be a homeowner to do this. You just can't be an investor, come in.
That's correct.
Buy the house, do a lot split. You have to be an owner, homeowner, and you have to live there.
That's correct.
In both cases. Okay, I apologize, Council. Was it Councilman Lopez?
No, that's all right. You're actually kind of go into the line of questioning I was going to get at. Yeah, there is a lot to do, and it seems it's going to rather be expensive, especially with the requirement to install sewer connections. But let me understand something. This in no way affects a owner's ability to convert the garages still, correct?
For existing house right
Yes.
now? Yeah, if someone existing wants to do an ADU under the ADU provisions, then they can do that.
Now, I was taken aback by the requirement for an enclosed parking, or at least one parking availability spot, because I thought, and does SB 9 somehow void the prior restriction on us as a city? Because in 2021, I was told, that when it came to ADUs on properties, that we could not put any parking requirements on the property owner. So if they're going to, like the homes on Palo Verde Street, we could not technically put a parking requirement because the law didn't allow us to. So they, by default, would go onto the street and add to the congestion and the fight for street parking. So now that's changed by virtue of SB 9, where they have to at least have one?
No, if you pursue adding a unit by means of the ADU unit, we cannot require an extra space for that. I mean, a garage space for it. I think, if I'm not correct, the ADU does require a space, but not necessarily, not a garage space. Open space, like a area.
The ADU law, yeah, the only thing I would add is that the ADU laws are more restrictive when it comes to that. SB 9 doesn't have a similar restriction that would not allow this requirement to take place. So this ordinance would apply to any unit developed under an as an SB 9 project, a 2-unit project or an urban lot split. That's separate from the ADU law. So if you were building a unit just under an as an ADU, not taking advantage of the SB 9 ordinance, then you may, then you might not be able to have that requirement, but that's not the case for SB 9 projects.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole 2,000 square foot requirement, at least of a property, and the split cannot be anything less than 500 minimum and no more than 800 maximum. That really isn't a big of a spot. And then I'm trying to envision where the requirement for the parking, the enclosed parking garage or structure or spot to go. But anyhow, I can see why this can be a little bit cumbersome on someone who isn't in your position or in yours who have done this for a living. But anyhow, I appreciate the presentation and the explanation. Thank you.
Councilor Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On SB 9 and SB 10 units, but I'll use SB 9 for the moment. If you want to see a good example, on Palo Verde Street on the south side, west of Vernon, east of Exeter, you'll get a good idea of what an SB 9 unit is. I'm very supportive of SB 9 and SB 10. In my professional life, I helped lobby to pass those bills. I was part of a large delegation, sometimes a small delegation. Part of this is arrived at the fact that California is running a minimum of, we need a minimum. We're running 200,000 units a year short just to keep up with the demand. We need a way to house people. Most of the SB9 units, in many cases, are housing family members who simply choose to then buy that unit. They're very different from an ADU, and I wouldn't go into the complications of it today. I also lobby on behalf of the ADU units and work very hard to get that one passed. I'm very supportive of this because we desperately need more housing. We worry all the time about issues about parking and who's going to live there, and we have public streets, by the way. They're paid for by the public, so anybody can park on a public street. You want to buy it yourself, go figure out how to buy it. SB9 units do have a garage with them. I've seen many of them throughout Southern California, and I think they enhance a neighborhood. I think it's a great opportunity for people to be able to say, my son and daughter-in-law live next door to me. We used to like these type of things. We used to call them carriage houses. When they're in very elite neighborhoods, nobody has a problem with it. This is helping to solve a housing problem. Are they necessarily affordable? No, and I would like to see more affordability. But this helps to solve a huge problem in California. We have to house people. And this is the only way to do it. Cities for years pushed away, whether it's this city or any other city, I don't want to cast stones, but for many years, local government pushed away more housing unless it was this size, that size, you know, granite countertops, quartz floors, things like that. We need housing, and this is a way to do it. I don't think you're going to see any detrimental impact. I grew up on Palo Verde Street, not too far from those units. In fact, we knew the family who used to live there. In fact, I think, Mr. Lopez, your family, your mom and dad anyway, knew the family that used to live there. I drive that street every single day from my home when I go to work and other things. And they haven't hurt that street whatsoever. And I think it took an old lot that had been vacant for at least 10 years or more, and it's turned it into something. So I'm very, very supportive of this. I think it's a good and creative solution to some of the housing problems in California. And you certainly have to have the size lot. My home, for example, I'm on a 9,500, 10,000 square foot lot, I think. And this type of a unit wouldn't fit there. It just wouldn't. You couldn't do it there. I could do an ADU. So it has to be a certain type of a lot to fit to begin with. And I don't know if we have an inventory of lots in this city where homeowners anyway would have lots big enough to do this. But I'm very supportive of it, and I think it's something that's very positive. Thank you.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion for the item as excuse me, Mr. Mayor, as presented this evening.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion, I believe, Councilmember Roos said as his first reading is to be read by number and title only.
Yes.
Further reading be waived. And let's go ahead and vote. Electronic vote. Motion is adopted 5-0.
Great, and I'll go ahead and read.
Go ahead.
Ordinance number 24-1007, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Montclair, amending Chapter 11.02 of the Montclair Municipal Code and adding a new Chapter 11.21 and a new Chapter 11.87 relating to urban lot splits and two-unit projects, and determining the ordinance to be exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Right, and then we'll have a second hearing on this item on Monday, March 18. Our second public hearing is consider for adoption ordinance number 24-1008. This is relating to compensation schedule for the mayor and members of the city council. Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Section 36516 of the Government Code authorizes the City Council to enact an amendment or an ordinance, providing each member of the governing board a salary adjustment based upon the population of the municipal jurisdiction. For cities over 35,000 to 50,000 in population, which is inclusive of the city of Montclair. Senate Bill 329, which was signed into law last year, June 2023, by Governor Newsom, adjusted the monthly base salary threshold for city council members to $1,275. In the legislature's enactment of SB 329, the legislature found that the lengthy time commitments and limited pay for locally elected leaders can serve to discourage qualified residents from running for office, especially low-income residents, single parents, people of color, and young people. SB 329 seeks to address that disparity. SB 329 also provides that salaries for city council members may be increased by an amount equal to inflation as of January 1, 2024, based upon the California Consumer Price Index, not to exceed 10% for each calendar year applied, or by an amount equal to 5% for each calendar year from the operative date of the adjustment of the salary currently in effect when the ordinance or amendment is enacted. In using the latter formula, which has been the City Council's past practice, the last operative increase to the compensation schedule for Montclair City Council members occurred on January 1, 2019, following adoption of ordinance number 17-970 in February of 2018. At that time, the monthly compensation for City Council members was adjusted to $1,150 per month. 5 calendar years have now passed since the January 2019 operative date of the last adjustment that is currently in effect. Pursuant to state law, the salary presently in effect for each Montclair City Council member can be adjusted up to 25% or $288 for a monthly salary of $1,438 as proposed under ordinance number 24-108. Government Code Section 36516.5 specifies that a change in the City Council compensation shall not apply to a council member during their current term of office. This prohibition does not, however, apply to a change in the elected members of the City Council after election when a new City Council is seated. So for the City of Montclair, the next general municipal election is scheduled to be held on November 5, 2024. If ordinance number 24-1008 is adopted, it would not be effective until after the new City Council is seated later in December, after the municipal election is certified. However, because the City of Montclair pays the City Council members on a monthly basis, the salary increase would not go into effect until January 1 of 2025. In addition to the City Council compensation for the City Council members, Section 36516.1 of the Government Code allows that a directly elected mayor may receive additional compensation by adoption of the ordinance. Montclair's directly elected mayor receives additional compensation in the sum of $500 per month. However, in consideration of the extraordinary effort that our current mayor puts forth in the City of Montclair, and those items are listed on page 34 of the agenda report. Just above table 2, you can see all of the items that the current mayor works on behalf of the city, including putting 20 hours of work in his office, half of what a full-time employee puts into the organization. So in consideration of that extraordinary commitment of time and service, ordinance number 24-1008 does propose that the supplemental compensation for mayor be adjusted from $500 to $750 per month. Fiscal impact, adoption of ordinance number 24-1008 would increase the amount of compensation of a city council member that a city council member receives from $1,150 per month to $1,438 per month. The annual compensation for all members would total $86,208 annually. The mayor would receive additional compensation of $750 per month for a total additional compensation of $9,000 annually. Adoption of ordinance number 24-1008 would result in additional annual total cost of $20,280 in additional salary costs for the city's annual budget. Staff recommends the City Council conduct first reading of ordinance number 24-1008 and set a public hearing for second reading and to consider adoption of ordinance number 24-1008 on Monday, March 8, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers.
Thank you. I will open the public hearing. Do we have any members in the public that wish to speak on this item?
Xavier Mendez has submitted a card to speak.
Xavier, come on down.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city manager, staff, and everybody in the public. Just to speak about this, just real quick, really short, just wanted to say I'm in support of this. I think that you guys have all done a great job, and I know John is always out there in the city, and I know Denise and Krista and Ben and Bill, everybody is out there really making a big effort, and I think it's a great thing to see you guys out there, you know, doing what you can for the community. So I appreciate that, and I support that. And I just, do you guys also get a car allowance? Is that a question I can ask? And is that in this or no? Or
No, it's
just
not
the-
in here, but yes, they do receive a car allowance.
Oh, they do? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. And I'll close the public hearing on this item. Any comments or questions from city council members? Councilman Rue?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I understand the background on this and why it's here tonight. To me, it's an issue everybody has to take within their own conscience. I did not support the last increase. I did not take it. And tonight, or I should say, March 18th, if it should pass, I would request that I remain at the level I am right now. I am not a rich man in any circumstances, but I'm comfortable with what I'm taking in. I do this in, recognition that many of our families are struggling, maybe a little bit of money here, but many of our families are struggling right now, and I'm just in solidarity with them. I didn't take it last time. I don't plan to take it this time, and that's a matter of everybody's conscience, please. If somebody votes for it and decides they want it, they can justify that. And I could justify taking it, but I just will choose not to, and so I will be opposing this tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand your comments, Councilman Rue, and Councilman Lopez.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. In 2020, during that particular campaign, I locked myself into a position, and I'm sure someone probably has it on tape or audio or whatnot, where I stated that I would not vote to increase council compensation and pay in my first term. For me to vote for this would be to break that pledge. Now, that said, I do think the increase in compensation for the mayor is very much justified. As the city manager alluded and mentioned in his comments, even though the mayor and I recently may have had some personal disagreements, I think the mayor's actions and the amount of time and investment and responsiveness to the public would justify his increase. When I came in 2020, of course, I'm the rookie on this dais. I did accept the existing pay that was offered me, and I haven't asked for anything more. But in keeping with my pledge that I made during the campaign, I respectfully have to vote no on the proposal.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to state this, first of all, I think this is something we actually should be doing every 2 years and not wait until 5, or last time was 11 years. So one of the records I want to get to staff tonight is that we at least do this every 2 years. Doesn't mean we will do it, agree to it, but at least it's on the agenda for us to discuss and not get way behind. And any more? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a comment, and then I have a question for City Manager Starr. I think that any person, regardless of their job classification, it would be reasonable for them to expect a salary increase after a period of time. It doesn't have to be an extraordinary amount, but they would expect something. So I understand why this item is being put before us, and based upon the efforts that we do, some, maybe some more than others, but there is a great deal of effort that is expended by council members, and like any other job, there is an expectation at some point of an increase. But my question for City Manager Starr is, Is the amount proposed consistent with the average amount that is offered to other employee groups here in the city of Montclair?
Consistent, yes.
Okay. 'Cause for some reason, I thought it was lower, but that's about right?
Yeah, employees average around 4% a year. So it's approximate to that, consistent, but employees get other benefits as well that add to the overall cost in relation to what the city puts into each individual employee.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a follow-up. Well, first of all, I do want the public to know that based on the compensation that is afforded this council and prior councils, none of those members have made a fortune off of the very small amount of compensation that they've received. No one on this dais from this council and prior have made a fortune off of the generous and kind funds that have been afforded council members. I also just want to say, I agree with the mayor's comment about trying to keep up with making sure this doesn't lapse anymore, because the last time I think was around 2016 to 18 period, where it was 11 years lapsed, and the press did jump on it that a 5% at 11 is a 55% increase. This time it would be a 25% increase. In the eyes of the public, perception's reality, it just does not look good. That said, I need to give John Dutre credit. Then Councilman Dutre was the one that negotiated a compromise in reducing that pay increase to a lower level, in which he got a majority of, I believe it, by a 3-2 vote.
No, I didn't, well, at the end of the day, it was 5%.
Well, but still, nonetheless, it was negotiated down, and I remember that sitting in the audience, and I have never forgotten that, and I appreciate that. So if staff can be on top of this in the future so it doesn't lapse, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, and I just want to know, when the city manager gave me a draft, he was proposing the mayor's salary essentially double from 500 to 1,000, and I kind of told him, that's probably very greedy, so bring it down much lower, so that's why it's at 750. So the only question I have for the council then is, you want 5%, you want a 4%, 3%? Do I hear anything? Do I hear anything? If not, 5% is what I'm hearing then, the ones that will support this. I'm not hearing disagreements. If not, can I get a motion? Go ahead.
I just
Oh,
have a comment,
Councilman.
and I want to make sure that it's not overlooked. And this was mentioned at the beginning of the report, but the purpose of the increase in the council salary is also to encourage people in the community to run for council. And, no one sitting up here is struggling per se, but really, shouldn't we be a diverse representation of the community? And if we're not increasing our salary, if we're not being competitive, people aren't going to be able to run for office. They're not going to be able to afford it. They're not going to be able to take time away from their jobs to sit up here. And city council is a huge time commitment. I would echo what Councilmember Lopez said. Our mayor does put in an extraordinary amount of time into his work, and so do I, and so does Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, and so does Councilmember Rue. And we certainly are out in the city, and we are on social media, and we are engaged. And I'm all for a $300 a month increase. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, sir. I just kind of want to reiterate some comments that have already been made. The salary that we're talking about is not a living wage. None of us can live on the salary. No one could live on the salary that we make. Even if we do these increases, it's not a living wage. It is just compensating us for the work that we do. So here's some things that most people don't know about. Yes, when we come to these meetings and we sit here on the dais, you know all about that because you see us. But what you don't know is when residents call us with their problems and we have to figure out how to solve them. What you don't know is when we're expected to show up in other places, whether it's in this city or if it's in another city, because we're a member of that group. And we are all over the place every day. So while it's not a full-time job, but we're busy, well, I think most of us are busy almost every day doing something for the residents of this community. And we're doing it for the satisfaction of supporting our residents. We're not doing it for money because we could go broke if we tried to live on just this income. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I think also, I don't know if all of us do it or some of us, I do it, but we actually do, I provide donations to the community, to different organizations here. So I think we all do that too. So we're not just holding on to the money ourselves, but we're giving part of that back into the community. So if I don't hear anything, if someone wants to make a motion, or if you want to go, do you want to make a motion, Mayor Pro Tem Johnson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to motion that we conduct the first reading of ordinance 24-1008, amending the Montclair Municipal Code related to compensation schedule for the mayor and members of the city council.
Okay.
And set a public hearing for second reading and to consider adoption of ordinance number 24-1008 on Monday, March 18, 2024 at 7 p.m. in city council chambers.
Okay, be read by a number, title and only. And do I hear anything else? No amendments being proposed or anything as far as percentages? If not, then is there a second to the motion? Carissa,
I'll second.
second motion, okay. Then if not, then we'll go to electronic vote. Okay, this is adopted, 3 in favor, Councilmember Lopez abstaining, Councilmember Rue no. So 3-1-1, and this item will be heard again on Monday, March 18th, as a second reading. Okay, now we're going to go down to the
I'll go ahead and read by number.
Oh, I'm
title.
sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
Ordinance
Starting
number
to get late.
24-1008, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Montclair mentioning sections 2.12.050 and 2.12.060 of Chapter 2.12 of the Montclair Municipal Code related to the compensation schedule for members of the City Council.
All right, great. Now we have a consent calendar, and I'll start with my right. Any members of my right want to pull an item off the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor, I was going to pull item B3, but for consideration of the time and some of those speakers that wanted to address
Well, I
that
think
issue.
item B3 is an important item. You should pull that. I had questions about that too. I was going to,
Mr.
then-
Mayor,
then let's pull it.
there's a member of the public who wants to speak on B3 as well.
okay, member in the audience? Okay, good. So we'll pull in B3 on my right and my left. Anybody else on my left other than B3? B3 is a hot item tonight. Okay, so we have a member of the audience who wants to speak on item B3. Let's have that person speak first.
Xavier.
Well, I hope you're not getting tired of seeing me. First, I just want to say thank you very much for continuing with the safe schools or the safe routes for schools. The area that you guys are going to be working in is that was my area that I grew up in, and it's good to see, this is finally going through. People I know have been asking ever since I worked for the city, when are we going to get sidewalks? When are we going to get sidewalks? And so it's great to see that the sidewalks are going to be going in now in that area. Definitely will help. Couple of other things I saw in this agenda, on the map and the school site plans. Number A, showing Benito Street. It's great to see that there's going to be stop signs for east and westbound on Benito. on Benito and Helena. I think that's very necessary, and I think it's been needed for years, so
Yep,
it's great
I
to
agree.
see that. One thing I'd love to see is maybe some more police officers down there during school when they're dropping off and picking up, because people just ignore every no stopping sign in that area. I know these guys over here, I can probably talk to them about that, so I'll maybe speak to them about that. But other than that, it's just good to see, those funds going in back to the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, so we're done with that item there. So why don't you start off, Ben?
Oh, yeah, just purposes
Lopez.
of comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, piggybacking on the comments by Planning Commissioner Mendez, the added signage, the added safety mechanisms throughout 3 of these locations. And for folks that don't know, those in the audience and those watching, there are 3 sites that'll have some improvements for safety devices, or not devices, but safety additives to the sites are Montclair High School, Monte Vista Elementary, and Montera Elementary. And of course, Monte Vista and Montera are close to each other in proximity, Montera being by Monte Vista and Holt, and Monte Vista being on Monte Vista and Orchard. And these, with the exception of Montera, the other two schools are longstanding schools with great history in the city, but nonetheless, there are risks to walking around those schools presently, and the investment of these funds is an investment in that. And also, as a caveat or bit of information to the public, a lot of this is funded through grant funding where we get reimbursement from. So thank you to staff, and Rosemary, I thanked you before the meeting, and I'll thank you publicly again. Thank you for your time and effort in this and putting this together. And I am thrilled to see that we're having seeing the implementation of our Safe Routes to School plan taking effect. And this puts a lot of parents at ease, including those that were at the meeting at 5:45, and the parents that they represent. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lopez.
I think you were next. Go ahead.
So I have a couple of questions, and they're probably questions for staff. But if I'm reading the maps correctly, there are a couple of things I have questions about. So are there new stop signs being installed, correct? And if that is the case, are all of them flashing stop signs, is one question?
That would be the plan, but yes.
Yes, okay. That's the answer I was hoping for. And then the second question that I have is a little bit more complicated. As I'm looking through the maps on all of the pages with the map, all 3 pages, they all have these little gold bars, and the legend says it's high visibility school crosswalk. So does that mean it's just striping, or is it the kind with the flashing lights like that's in front of Montera, or is it just striping on the ground?
This is surface striping, but the enhanced sidewalk crossing for school areas. So if you go to a neighborhood school and you'll see that the crosswalks have been beefed up with significant striping, that is what we're talking about here.
So would an example of that be the striping that is on Orchard near Monte Vista Elementary? Is that the kind of striping we're talking about?
Yes, but what you're also referring to is the beacon flashing, the hybrid flashing lights, and those will be part of this in the designated location. So if you look at Montclair High School, you'll see that a couple of those are on the south side at mid-block crosswalks.
And that's striping, not flashing.
Well, no, those that I alluded to just now would be the flashing hybrid beacons.
Okay, good. And are there other flashing hybrid beacons throughout this
I believe there are, and Rosemary might be able to respond to where specifically all of them are.
It will take me a minute to identify all the locations. I'd be happy to do that on a separate, email to you, if that's acceptable.
Of course, that's what would be acceptable. If you could just at your leisure, just identify which ones are flashing and which ones are just striped. But it doesn't have to be like tonight or, at your leisure.
Very good.
I think the general rule would be that where it's not an intersection or near an intersection that is controlled by stoplights, but it is mid-block crosswalk, it's very likely that that will be one of these hybrid beacon lights.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir. That concludes my questions.
Okay, Councilmember Rue.
Yes. In looking at this, it is, for me, something coming full circle. In another iteration of my life years ago, I worked for then Assembly Member and then Senator Nell Soto. She is the one who authored the Safe Routes to School bill, and yours truly helped to write that eons ago. So for me, this is something that's come full circle, and I'm pleased to see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize. This question already popped up once, but I believe the next step, Ed, is we're going to City Manager Starr. We're going this will go out for bid, or no? We have we're currently in the design phase. Next,
yes,
we're starting design phase. Am I correct?
Yes.
And then once those construction plans are done, we're going into the construction bid, put it out for bid, and then we'll start construction, and then the $5 million. That's money. No, is it what? No, 1.5 is it?
$5,701,000
Yeah.
has been received for grant money.
Okay.
And the city will be adding approximately $630,000 on top of that.
That money is for design and for construction.
Yes.
Okay. And I want to make a comment on this. You know, this is one of the issues that, as you all four of you know, that we've been hammered by the public in this community about traffic safety, and more particular, traffic safety around schools. And obviously, one gentleman spoke twice on the same subject this evening. And, you know, these are the items that this community cares about, and this is the items that the city council obviously needs to focus on. So I'm really proud, after the report that was done, a study report that was done several years ago, that at least we're getting to this point and started to see implementation of improvements. And we started that obviously with the flashing stop signs and done some other improvements around Vernon Middle School. But this is the stuff we needed to do. And so I'm really proud that we got to this point, and I'm looking forward to more, but especially Montclair School and Montclair School and Montclair High School. These three schools are probably, to me, three of the biggest impact schools when it comes to traffic safety and pedestrian safety. Okay, enough of that. So let's get a motion on the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I move the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, let's do electronic vote. Okay, there is the electronic vote. Electronic vote is in. Consent calendar is adopted 5-0. So we will now go down to communications of staff and city council. City attorney, you have nothing for tonight for closed session. City manager, you have anything to add?
No items.
No items. First of all, and Bill, you're gonna help me, Councilmember, you're gonna help me on this, but we're gonna adjourn this meeting in the memory of Mel Haldell.
Dell.
And I have an article here if you wanted to, I'll have you go last, this way you have an opportunity. Okay, well.
Those of you who don't know in the audience, Mel Haddell
Go ahead.
was the publisher of the Montclair Tribune for many, many years. He covered a lot of the stories here. He had a chain of different local newspapers. I knew Mel rather well, and over the years, besides being a newspaper publisher, he wrote a book about his journey during World War II. He was one of the pilots who flew over the Himalayas. They called it flying the hump, and it was one of the more dangerous missions. So he had very fascinating stories about that. If any of you had the opportunity to listen to him over the years, he really was a war hero. He loved his communities. Although he lived in Upland, he had an affection and an affinity for just about every community he had newspaper in. And he passed away at the young age of 102. And there's some of the audience who don't remember the Montclair Tribune, but I think almost everybody up here does, and several in the audience. It was the paper where you got all the local news. So it didn't cover a lot of things other than Montclair, our schools, what was going on at the council meeting, and things of that sort. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, and I think I met Mel once a long time ago. Did he live on Euclid in Upland?
He sure did.
Yeah,
And later
I
he moved
went to his house.
Upland Heights, yeah.
When I used to work for the city of Upland then. Thank you. There's been several events in Montclair recently. I just want to announce that we participated. There was the Miles to Montclair at Montclair High School. I know Councilmember Rue was there. I don't know if Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, if you're able to make it out there. That's the annual walk to raise money for Montclair students who are unhoused. So there was a pretty good crowd. I think they raised $25,000 this year, if I'm correct. In addition to Montclair High School, there was Career Day last Thursday, which I believe just Councilmember Johnson was there, and you guys can talk more about it if you want. I had an opportunity to speak to two classes that day, 40 minutes each class, and spoke about my career and how I developed and was able to move forward in my urban planning career, how I became an elected official, and obviously how I started in Montclair High School and proceeded from there. In addition to that, last Friday, and I think Councilmember Martinez, you were at Lee High School last Friday, and there was Read Across America as part of the Dr. Seuss, and for his birthday, and I read to a fourth grade class at Lehigh Elementary School. And I will say this, I had more participation by the fourth graders than I did by the the juniors, sophomores, freshmen, and seniors at Montclair High School. They were raising their hands, they were engaging, so just wanted to leave that out there. I also want to say that I had a chance to attend the Montclair Golden Girls opening. I think everybody was there for that one. Am I correct? Everybody attend that event? And then, I'm sorry? No? You weren't there for that one? Okay. And then there's also the tree planting event that took place at Reeder Park a couple of Saturdays ago, which I believe 4 of the 5 council members were there for that event there. And then just to remind everybody, this coming Saturday at 11 o'clock, the Little League opening was delayed, so it'll be held again this Saturday at 11 a.m. Tomorrow is an election day, and it's an opportunity for us here in California to vote. If you haven't voted already by mail, I'll be at the polls tomorrow voting. So, on the ballot is President of the United States. We have our first time in many years an open U.S. Senate seat. Obviously, the U.S. House Representative. We have an open California State Assembly seat. And then I think there's a proposition obviously on the ballot, but this is an opportunity for all Americans to voice their opinion about national issues and, of course, state issues. I'd like to remind my council members that one of the things my mentor once told me, Councilman Leonard Paulitz, is that don't forget that you don't just represent one person in the audience or a small group. You really here represent the entire city of Montclair. In this case, we have 40,000 residents. 40,000 residents have many different views. 40,000 residents have many different wants in terms of their city government. And that's why we have an election, because those 40,000 residents, some of them obviously are voters, and they're the ones who elect us into office. And I always believe that you don't allow a small group or one individual or to dictate how we vote on the council dais. We always remember the 40,000 residents that we represent here in the city of Montclair, not just residents who are voters, but just any resident. Every resident of this community has a right to provide services. And this city provides a lot of services to this community, and every resident has a right to be heard if they want to be heard. So I encourage anybody on any subject, including the subject of Gaza and Israel, you feel free to contact me. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it, about my personal opinion on the issue. And I pray for Gaza. I pray for Israel. I pray for peace in that part of the world. It's very disturbing on both sides. I think in this room tonight, I kind of felt the tension of both groups and kind of understand why the Middle East, especially in that part of the Middle East, why there's so much conflict. People cannot get along, and kind of felt that here in this room today. And I'll just leave it there. I think we have the Brown Act to be careful of, but I'll just leave that to here today. And I will start with Councilmember Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned Golden Girls. I did attend that. I think it's great to see our young people out there doing these things. We don't always cover it. They cover the young people who may break into a store window or steal a car. These young ladies are out there and really learning teamwork, also helping and assisting in our community. I also attended and walked with the Montclair High School students in the March Against Homelessness. This is where they raise money for their colleagues, their students who are homeless. I have only missed 2 of these, and I had reasons for missing my work-related issues. But I will say I think it's a crime that we have homeless high school students. Some of them are living in cars, some of them are living wherever they can find it. Today they're with one family, tomorrow they're with another, and I admire these students for doing this. These are not necessarily affluent students. This is not an affluent community. And for them to do this and walk in the rain tells me the caliber of young people in this town. I could go on all night tonight about the issue of homeless, and I won't due to the lateness of the hour, but these are the good students. When you see these students, thank them for what they're doing. They will be good, civic-minded people in the future. On March 30th, we will have Easter Fun Day here in Montclair. It will be at Alma Hoffman Park. It's always a wonderful event, lots of prizes, games, and just fun. I also attended the tree planting. Was for me to do it with no coordination, it was really an issue, but I got it done. The mayor mentioned Election Day. Yes, tomorrow is Election Day. If you have mail-in ballot, please take it to your polling place. We do live in California, and if you live here in Montclair, San Bernardino County, if for some reason something happens, you find yourself in, I don't know, the west side of LA tomorrow, and you still have your ballot with you, you can take it to any polling place, deposit it, and they will make sure that it's sent over to the appropriate county. You can also drop them off at city halls across California. However you vote is your business. It's yours alone. And please vote, though. It's important. I know many of the people on the ballot, but my vote is mine, and I will vote as I choose, but we need to vote. You do not have a voice if you don't vote. And the mayor mentioned about peace. As the mayor knows, and a few others, I start every morning at my home quietly, and I recite privately the prayer of St. Francis. I've been doing this since I was about 12 years old. I won't go into all of it tonight. You can look it up, but it says, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace, and where there is hatred, let me sow love. And I won't read all of it tonight. You can look it up. I have been reading this poem in my private life, as I said, since I'm 12 years old, and I believe in what it says. We truly need to have peace. Children are the real reason why. And whether it's our students here at Montclair High School or students somewhere else, we need to let the young people know that they will have a future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quickly, I also attended the Golden Girls opening ceremonies on February 24th. I remind everyone that just 2-3 short years ago, these girls were not able to play. We couldn't have any sports outdoors. So in a short amount of time, they are back in full swing. And looks like their numbers increased, registration increased, and it was good to see a large contingent of parents, family, and young girls out there on the field. What struck me as the most touching moment of the ceremony was that its president and the board recognized individuals who they have since lost from the prior season to now. And they did a balloon ceremony and asked members of the family members of those that had passed to come to center field and release the balloons. And just when you thought that small contingent in the circle, similar to the circle here in the chambers, were done releasing the balloons, you had their coaches from other teams and these players with tears in their eyes comfort the family members that were in the middle. And it just became a small group of maybe 5 to 10 individuals, was 30 and 40, and before you knew it, the whole field, all the players and teams were in the middle, lending support and love to their Golden Girls family. So that was pretty touching, and that's indicative of the spirit of Montclair. On March 9th, this coming Saturday, it is Montclair Little League's turn for their opening ceremonies. I believe they start at 8 a.m. and they'll last till about 12 or 1. And all of their teams will have their introductions, introduce the new players, the coaches, and the public is welcome. They'll have food, entertainment, music, you name it. Come by Saratoga Park. The mayor and my colleague, Mr. Rue, touched on tomorrow being Election Day. For those of you that have a signed ballot that you have not dropped off yet, you can drop it off at your polling place, or you can go to the parking lot here and drop it off in the drop-off box. Just make sure you sign it, seal it, and date it in order for it to be valid. And I always like to say, there's no excuse for us as Americans not to vote. They've made it so simple now, every single one of us should vote. Turnout right now is only at 9% statewide, and that's a shame. When you think about the many selfless men and women who died for this country and that flag, so they could ensure our right to vote, we should honor them and their memory by at least going out and voting. And then finally, Sunday, March 10th, I don't know if it's daylight savings or what the terminology is. All I know is you spring forward. So on Saturday night, move your clocks 1 hour ahead. Otherwise, you will be late to everything on Sunday, from church to every event, you name it. And then we lose an hour's sleep. That's the part I don't like. But anyhow, don't forget to change your clocks March 10th. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, I can't talk anymore, sorry.
Yes, Mr. John, oh, my Lord. Yes, Mr. Mayor. No, well, I'm thinking about him, so never mind. So, Mr. Mayor, I have just a few things very quickly. One, I want to talk about the tree planting that we did at the Reeder Ranch Park. And I believe almost all of us were there. And there were 100, I think, Ms. Hornig, there were 147 trees that needed to be planted. And when we arrived, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy because they already dug the hole and the tree is in the hole. We just have to put the dirt in. And the lesson I learned that day is that it's not as easy as it looks, number one. And then I need to commend Mr. Mendez, Xavier Mendez, because while I was struggling to do one, he did like 2 or 3 all by himself. And I'm like, I don't know how you did that, but kudos to you for all of your hard work and for all of us for the work that we did on those trees. And I think we have 2 more events coming up where we're going to be planting some more trees throughout the city. So I look forward to that. I did enjoy Golden Girls. My daughter, who played in Golden Girls, is now 35, but I was rocking her Golden Girls 1999 All-Stars with the little button. So if she saw that button, she'd probably rip it off and throw it away. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. So I also want to talk about Career Day at Montclair High School. So what all of us were asked to do was to talk about our careers and how we got into them and how they ended and what the strengths and weaknesses are. So, I have what I consider to be a very illustrious career as a healthcare administrator, retiring first from Kaiser Permanente and then retiring again because I didn't have sense enough to stay retired, retiring again from McGann Medical Center. And so, I have all of this experience, but I thought to myself, if I start talking to these kids, I'm going to sound like Charlie Brown's mother. They're not going to hear it. So I gave them a very quick synopsis of my career, and I have I'm fortunate enough to have had 2 careers, one as a healthcare administrator and now this one. But what I really talked to them about was their elevator speech, because high school students tend to be really quiet when the rubber hits the road. Now, when they're with their friends, they're very boisterous, but when they need to talk to somebody of authority who could assist them, they don't know how to do an elevator speech. And for those of us who know how to do it, you've got 30 seconds to say that speech before you lose their person's attention. So we talked about the elevator speech, and then I spent much time in the faces of the students. And so I told them, I want you to think about what you're really good at, and I want you to introduce yourself to this classroom and tell us what you're good at. And then I walked up to each one of them. Who are you, and what are you good at? And so some of them were very uncomfortable, but by the end of the class, they were able to say in a strong voice, my name is fill in X here, and I'm really good at football or cooking or whatever their thing was. And so I was really pleased to be able to teach them how to do that elevator speech. And then we also talked, because they're getting close to being adulthood and they're going to have to get jobs, and we talked about how to build a resume if your only job has been a student. And so that was another skill that they were able to take away. So I was really honored to be able to do that. I did miss 2 events last Saturday. One was the Miles for Montclair, and that was supposed to be in the morning. And also there was the meeting at the Vedic Temple, which I intended to attend their youth forum. But my husband announced to me on early Friday that our children are coming sometime this weekend and they're expecting you to cook. So on Saturday, I was under the influence of both of my children. My children are adults. They are responsible members of the community. They're both very successful careers on their own. But somehow when my children are in the house, they're little kids again. I don't know why they're still arguing over Who took the hot sauce bottle and who ate the grapes? I don't know why they're doing that. But so it was between them and my 4 grandchildren who are 8, 7, 5, and 4. And if I could bottle their energy, I'd be a rich person. So I'm very sorry that I missed Miles from Montclair, but that's why I wasn't there. And then tomorrow, I can't say my colleagues have said it, and I can't say it enough times. Vote, 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 vote. So here, if you don't vote in this election and the general election, in any election going forward, you don't have an opinion. Your vote is your opinion. That's where you tell electeds what you want and how you want it. So please, vote, 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 vote. Exercise your right for democracy in every single election. It is my personal choice, not anybody else's. There people can do what they want, but many people who look like me have been killed trying to get into the ballot box, and therefore, I stand on their shoulders. I never do the mail-in. I'm going to go into the ballot box because some of my ancestors could not. So tomorrow morning, guess where I'm going to be? I'm going to be at the ballot box, and I hope all of you vote, 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 vote. I can't say it enough times. Please, please, please vote. That concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez.
Thank you. So anybody who is a regular to our council meetings will know that we only ever get maybe 1 or 2 audience members that speak regularly. And so to have dozens of members in attendance is pretty spectacular today. With that said, we represent our community. We represent the people that come here and speak to us. And I want to pose a hypothetical question based on that. How can we as council members say that we represent our community when we won't even agree to agendize an item that our community members have come asking us to discuss? This is the second time I've asked. I will not get into it because of Brown Act reasons, but this is an important issue. On both sides, it is heartbreaking. It truly is. We need to have the discussion. We need to have people's voices heard. We need to have the ability to respond to our residents. I'm asking again, will one of my council members please second a motion to agendize a ceasefire resolution, and with that, a mutual disdain for both sides targeting one another. Neither side is in the right now. Neither side. We need a mutual ceasefire. But there's a genocide happening, and that needs to be discussed.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Councilman Lopez.
We are still going to entertain listening to speakers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would my colleague be willing to put off her request until all speakers have spoken prior to a potential decision on the matter?
I think this is an appropriate time at this time.
I have a feeling that our speakers are going to say things that our audience members may not want to be here for. And I completely would understand if you'd want to leave and not listen to what they're going to say. So with that, I would like to make my motion now, and I would hope that I can at least have a second so that we can discuss this item.
Is there a second to the motion to place this item on the next agenda for discussion? I don't believe there's a second to the motion. I don't hear a second, so that motion fails. Councilman Lopez, you got
another point of clarification.
Motion you want to make,
well, clarification on the motion. The motion is to agendize discussion on the topic, or agendize discussion to consider a resolution for a ceasefire?
I want to consider resolution.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so is there a second to the motion? No? Then motion fails. And I know I gotta be careful because of Brown Act, but I would state this. If there was enough people, Montclair residents, not residents from other communities, but Montclair residents that approached me, told me, or came to this meeting, or sent us emails, Montclair residents said, this is important to our community, we need to have an agenda, I would support it on those levels, but we don't have that. And I also state this, because there was a 7-hour meeting in Claremont the other day, that this is we have this discussion, we're gonna have anybody and everybody here, mostly people will probably be Montclair residents, and it's gonna be another tension moment. So, no, I'll leave it there, because I know I have to care for the Brown Act. All right. I can talk some more, sorry. If we have committee meeting minutes, I know in Personnel Committee meeting minutes on the agenda. So I know we still have public comments left. My question to the council member, do you guys need a break, like a 5-minute break? Let's do a 5-minute break then. All right. Okay, we're gonna call this meeting back to order. Thank you for your patience, appreciate it. I'm going to give this to Councilmember Johnson. She forgot something else in her communications.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is one more announcement that I wanted to make. On Saturday, March the 16th, from 9 to 4 at at the Montclair Place Mall is the Cinderella Dreams event. And so if you don't know what that is when high school girls here in our local area between Montclair and Ontario, for high school girls who want to go to the prom but can't afford prom gear, there is an opportunity for them to go to the mall in the space that used to be Nordstrom's on the 16th, and there are donated gowns, shoes, purses, jewelry, everything that they need to go to the prom. And then they also will have their makeup redone. They'll have some makeup done for them, and they'll be taught how to use it. And all of that is free for them. And the way that those girls can get those items is to talk to their high school counselors so that they can register for the Cinderella Dreams event. So I did go to the one last year, and there's a certain look that high school students have. They come in their jeans and their hoodies, and they're kind of slouching, and their hair is everywhere. They didn't bother to run a brush through it, but they would go in and pick those gowns, and they came out of that space with the gowns on, with the jewelry and the purse and the shoes, and it was like a true Cinderella. They went from to, oh my God, I'm magical. So any of you who have high school students, or if you know high school students who might need assistance, please tell those girls to register with their counselors for the Cinderella Dreams event held at Montclair Place in the Nordstrom's space, previous Nordstrom space, and it's on Saturday the 16th from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. We have public comments to finish off this city council meeting. City clerk, how many speakers do you have so far?
So we have 3 in the council chambers. And then I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on Zoom.
You have 9 on Zoom, is what you're showing? 9 altogether
9,
on Zoom?
yes,
That
9 that
includes
were-
new people or just the people that are
This is
existing?
the people that were on for public comment when we paused earlier.
Okay, all right then. So I think what we would do is we have 9 on Zoom plus 3 in the audience. So I think we do is limit that to 2 minutes to each speaker. And I'm going to warn the audience this evening, as you heard earlier today, there's a group that spoke at a Claremont City Council meeting about 4 or 5 months ago on Zoom as well. And it was very disturbing in terms of racist remarks that was made specifically towards the Jewish community. So we obviously have to follow the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. I will say this, that I will ask that no profanity be said. If I hear profanity, then that's the end of that person's public comment. This is a professional meeting. We're here to conduct the people's Montclair's business. We're not here to conduct business of other communities. We're here to represent the people of Montclair to conduct their business. So again, we're just going to warn the audience that it may get disturbing in terms of some of the remarks. I ask that if there's remarks that are very disturbing, please remain calm. Or if you are upset about it, please leave these chambers until we're done, or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to ask the city clerk now. Before I ask the city clerk, I'm going to read this again once more. I want to make sure that everybody's clear that we condemn this type of racist behavior. And I'm going to read this again. This city council adopted resolution 23-3414 last year, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Montclair reaffirming the City of Montclair's commitment to the well-being and safety of all individuals regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, national origin, disability, sex, gender expression, sexual orientation, age, or military or veteran status, and condemning hate crimes and any other forms of racism, religious or ethnic bias, discrimination, incitement of violence, or targeting of minorities. Again, that's a resolution that this council took last year. So City Clerk, go ahead and we'll start.
Right, first is Miriam Roham.
Hello, Marion. Oh, Marion's in the audience, excuse me. Go ahead, Miriam, sorry.
Hi. Dear honorable council members, my name is Miriam. I was born in Iran. We had to flee from Iran and leave everything behind because we were subject to anti-Semitism on a daily basis. We were threatened, we were harassed, oppressed, we were made to pay extra fines. And my dad had even changed his last name because it was too Jewish and he was getting beat up at the university. We moved to the United States and are proud citizens of this beautiful country. We came to this haven because of the freedoms we did not have back in Iran. I am saddened, outraged, and scared to see the rise of anti-Semitism here in the United States, especially in the city of Montclair, as a resident of the Inland Empire community for 20 years. I have heard and seen kids in high school be subjected to anti-Semitic texts, Nazi salutes, verbiage, as well as swastikas drawn on desks and notebooks, including one of my children. We are constantly being harassed online and in person because of our faith. Jewish residents and students taking off their yarmulkes and mezuzahs from their doors. What is this city doing to prevent hate towards certain minority groups in Montclair, especially in the schools? Please, I urge you to protect the Jewish community and the Jewish children in this city and the schools by not passing an anti-Israel resolution. You just witnessed the anti-Semitic attacks, which we are subjected to on a daily basis. I urge you, if you are going to do a resolution, condemn Hamas's actions. This path would see us formally denounce the October 7 attacks, aligning our city with the global condemnation of terrorism and the weaponization of sexual violence. Such a resolution would underscore our shared values of humanity, justice, and peace, making clear our collective abhorrence of such brutality. 2, focus solely on local issues. Alternatively, you could pass a resolution to reaffirm our commitment exclusively to local governance, emphasizing our primary responsibility to our residents and the immediate needs of the community. Should our council
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Morty Harlig.
Is that in the audience or is that
In the
Zoom?
audience.
Okay, come on up, please.
Hi, Mayor and all the council members. So my name is Rabbi Morty Harlig. I was born here, grew up here, lived here all my life. Been a member of the community here. And unfortunately, as we saw tonight, what this ceasefire, so-called ceasefire agenda is really all about. We see it's all just really a cover for anti-Semitism, for more Jew hatred. You know, I grew up here with older people in the community that ran away from the Holocaust, from World War II, from other countries, from Europe, which are being persecuted. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that locally here in Montclair, the place where I grew up, this would be something which would be, I'm sure all of you were appalled here tonight, listening to all this hate and anti-Jewishness. We all know this isn't really about a ceasefire or peace. We know there's a million problems all over the world. There's Palestinians being killed in Syria, in Ethiopia, in Yemen, in all these countries, hundreds of thousands, and no one said a word about them. And that's because the only thing that everyone is obsessed with is just the Jews. It's just a cover for anti-Semitism. And this is just a local government. We're not the federal government over here. And our expertise and your job, as you guys spoke about tonight, you have a lot of important things, taking care of housing, the homelessness, the poor people, the sidewalk safety. Those are local things which is the council members' jobs to deal with the local cities. We'll leave the world's problems. That's what we have our federal government for. That's what we have. The rest of it, let's keep things local. Let's keep the peace. Let's not get into all this world politics, which only causes division and more anti-Semitism. And may we all have world peace, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next one, please.
All right, this one is Eugenia Fukshansky
Is that audience?
in
too?
the audience.
Hi.
Morning. I guess it's almost morning. Sorry.
That's true. It's not so late. So, dear City Council, I just want to say thank you for not bringing up the ceasefire resolution in the future for the consideration in the City Council. This is a very complicated matter for the discussion. As you can see, even on federal level, it's very hard for people to agree. Congress discusses it to early morning hours. What you see in the neighboring cities, a lot of heated discussions and a lot of division in the community when these issues are brought up. At the end of the day, after all of these discussions, City Council, people express their opinions and it gives them opportunity to speak, but aside from the division, it doesn't influence matters on the federal level. And it takes a lot of very valuable time and resources from the City Council to address issues that City Council addresses so well, like Golden Girls, impact on the community, city streets, things that city councils are really, really meant to do and where they really, really impact in a very positive way. Please bring communities together, don't divide them. Thank you for the concern. I see that you guys get along very well, how wonderful and warm your relationships are. Please bring it to the city. Don't divide us. Take care. Thank you so much for bringing the peace.
Okay.
The next speaker is going to be our first Zoom speaker.
All right, Zoom speaker.
Jim Conley.
All right, folks, get ready.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I wanted to first of all ask the council to consider drafting a different resolution, one that would honor June 8th as USS Liberty Day. It was the day that Israeli forces tried to sink one of our U.S. Navy ships called the USS Liberty, which killed 34 Americans and wounded 174. Second thing I'd like to speak about is I agree with the Palestine-Israel ceasefire resolution. I wanted to make sure that what people don't talk about is why this conflict is going on. I have a book that my pastor recommended to us called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. That was written in 2006. Palestinians have been getting slaughtered by Israeli Jews for 75 years. This didn't happen start in October. The Media lies. The 40 headless babies has been debunked. There's 6 Jewish corporations own all of 96% of the media in the US. That's probably why we hear so much Israeli propaganda. I probably won't have time to get into APAC, but consider that as well, that APAC pretty much controls our government. Going back to why do I think there's a conflict over there? Let me read you a verse from the Jewish Talmud, Reuven 43b. Once the Messiah comes, all the nations will be subservient to the Jewish people. They're trying to rebuild the third temple and bring about the Jewish Messiah, which for Christians is going to be the Antichrist, or Muslims call it the Dajjal.
Okay, we'll go on to the next speaker.
Okay, the next speaker is Ron Jeremy. One moment.
Can you hear me?
Who's this next speaker? Is it Ron, you said?
Yes, sir.
Ron Jeremy, how you doing today?
I'm well, thank you very much.
Great. Are you a Montclair resident, Ron?
Yes, and not to be associated with the person who produces films.
Okay, no problem. It's all yours now. Go for it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that your city council here has respected the First Amendment as well as the Brown Act. I know that some of the things that you hear you may not agree with, so I do want to say that I appreciate the fact that you've allowed people to speak, no matter how vile or disrespectful you think it is. That's commendable. I do appreciate the fact that your attorney has allowed people to say what they feel is appropriate, whether it be a public comment or discussing worldly matters or whatnot. So I do appreciate that. One thing that I would like to say, though, is it is a little bit ironic that we have a 2% minority who's constantly coming up and complaining about different things such as anti-Semitism within our community. But there is no words for anti-white rhetoric, anti-black rhetoric, anything. They're the only group of people that have a definition that's anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic is just anything truthful. If you're speaking truth, it's deemed anti-Semitic by this 2% minority group. So, don't listen to these people when they're up here complaining and saying that there's Nazis being drawn on their desks. More than likely, these Nazi symbols were probably carved into the desk by them, which 9 times out of 10, when you see the news come out and they say that there's swastikas drawn on walls or hate crimes being committed and acts of violence, it's usually perpetrated by this same group, okay? They lash you while crying. This is what they do, okay? They cry out in pain as they whip you. This is exactly how this 2% minority group operates. They always play victim. So a ceasefire resolution would be nice, but they want to continue to bomb innocent people. They want to continue to expand their territory. That's why they're against you guys taking a stance on this resolution. The last thing that they want to be told is that they should stop killing.
Okay.
All right, next speaker will be Molly Conger.
Molly Conger. All right, Molly Conger.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hello, Molly. This is Mayor Dutray. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Are you a Montclair resident?
Sure am.
Okay. All right. It's all yours.
Fantastic. My goodness. Some of these public comments today. I really wanted to touch on the Gaza subject, but I feel that it's very important after hearing some of these things that we really talk about anti-Semitism. Now, I would like to put in perspective, I heard, I believe it was a rabbi who came in there, an Orthodox man. He spoke about his grandparents having been part of the Holocaust, and I would really like to talk about how scary this is. You see, the Holocaust wasn't perpetrated just by Hitler. He had an entire nation behind him. This man got in front of a group of people and he was able to rile everyone behind him, not only because he was a powerful speaker, but there was things happening that really kind of acted as a catalyst. For instance, there was a man named Magnus Hirschfeld. He was a doctor, a Jewish man back then. He opened up an institute. It was a transgender institute, and like just like we're having today, you know. But this was way back then. He was what you'd call a Uring back then. It basically means a homosexual. And with things like this, I mean, I'm opening up a entire institution onto how to change genders. It was one thing that really threw people in catalyst back then. They did not like that this was happening. In today's terms, they call it Weimar conditions. And you'll see rhetoric online, you know, Weimar conditions, Weimar solutions. You know what I mean? And I feel that today we're seeing that. There's issues in our world, and the way that people are fighting back is the same way they did back then. They're finding the one group responsible and they're holding them accountable. And I feel that those kids that are at school, you know, drawing swastikas and Roman saluting, you know, I guess you guys will call it a Hitler salute. I just want to say that I appreciate them wholeheartedly because they are our future. And I hope.
You know, isn't America a great country to live in? You can express whatever you want, because if you did that, and probably, let's say, I think in other countries, they'll lock you up and all that fun stuff. So, you know what? When we salute that flag of the United States, remember that this is a great country, and tomorrow we're going to vote because we love the United States of America. Am I correct? All right. Thank you. Let's go on to the next speaker. I'm enjoying this this hour of comedy. Go ahead.
All right, next is Bill Shaner.
Hello, how's it going? Are you there, Bill?
City Council, yeah, Bill.
All
Shaner.
right, it's all yours. We're gonna enjoy this.
Perfect. First off, to your closing comment on the last speaker, I would like to say God bless America, and I hope that everyone in this council meeting, everyone in the audience, is on board with that statement. And I would like to speak on the ceasefire resolution that was brought up earlier. I would actually like to advocate anti-ceasefire resolution. We should not put out a ceasefire resolution because we should see the true evil that the nation state of Israel, the illegitimate state, by the way, of Israel, is doing and the war crimes they are committing. They're using white phosphorus on women, children, soldiers, all of which is banned by the Geneva Convention, by the way. And these horrific war crimes. Why are we standing by this? Why is anyone supporting this? I don't have any particular affiliation for Palestine or Israel. I do, however, have a moral compass, and that knowing that a specific nation state is targeting innocent civilians, again, specifically children and women and civilians instead of, active militant fighters. That is something that I think is wrong. I don't agree with the previous callers with some of the anti-Semitic statements that are being said. I'm not being anti-Semitic for speaking against the state of Israel, again, the state, not the Jewish people. However, I think that perhaps moving forward, maybe the city could pass a resolution to arm the Palestinians so that they are able to defend themselves against the aggressors and oppressors from the people that stole their land in 1947 from the British oppressors that gave them this land where they had lived for thousands and thousands of years before these went and took everything from.
All right. Got to use the F word there to make their points. And by the way, I want to say that I have met some great Palestinians and great Israelis. Seriously. Great people, great hearts, and I've enjoyed both sides. And I really believe that the Israelis and Palestinians can one day live in peace if they just knew each other a lot better. And we can do in this country with all the ethnic groups we have in this country. I think the Palestinians and the Israelis can do it as two sovereign nations, in my opinion. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but I just said it. All right, next speaker.
All right, next is Albert Jr.
giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Can you hear me?
Yes, Albert, it's all yours.
Great. A ceasefire resolution isn't far enough. It's virtue signaling. We must boycott those that are advocating for the genocide of men, women, and children in Gaza. John Lennon said, "War is over if you want it," and it's true. We can be a Jew-free world, but it requires more than just a piece of paper. It requires activism and action. Boycott Zionists. Sanction Israel. Tell the colonizers they're not welcome. I keep hearing both sides talk about why they support or don't support a resolution for a ceasefire. But what I really hear is one side calling for the end of bloodshed of innocent children, and the other is a bunch of Jewish supremacists crying that they're being exposed for what they really are. Supremacy is wrong. I'll make that statement. Using violence against others that don't look like you or have your faith is wrong, but that's exactly what Israel is doing. We have government officials trying to ban the criticism of Jews and imprison those that work to expose their crimes. The audacity of the Yentists calling into cry about anti-Semitism and so-called hoax is disgusting. I'm supposed to feel compassion for a group that the Bible said was of their father the devil and of the synagogue of Satan? I'm supposed to feel bad that these parasites are finally getting some karma? People need to wake up and realize Zionism is Judaism. Judaism is communism, and it's a religion of sickness and evil. Do I feel bad about October 7th? Not one bit. The Jews have been killing kids for decades and have slaved the world with their demonic actions. If the people really came together, they will be free of Jewish control. Boycott Jewish businesses. Affecting their finances and educating others is the best thing you can do to get these people out of your lives. Why does the ADL, a group that was founded on defending Leo Frank, a child rapist, get to work with city government to infringe on the people's rights to criticize the Jews? Learn more at gtdflyers.com and Goyim TV. Do we really need to figure out our communities are stricken with such horrible crimes? But we don't need more police or militarization of law enforcement. We need to enforce the laws we already have. We have to get rid of George Soros puppet district attorneys. Why does 13% of the population commit 50% of the crime? Why is the majority of rapes committed by black men? I'm not saying every black man is a criminal, but the facts don't lie, and the more a black community becomes, the more...
The next one is Martin
What
King.
did Rodney King say? Can't we just all get along? All right, next speaker.
Martin King.
Hey, Martin, how are you doing today, Martin? Hello? Can't hear you, Martin. Are you there? Okay, that sounds like you're having problems, technical problems. So we'll go on to the next
technical
speaker.
problems. So next is Phil Barber.
Phil Barber. Hello, Phil, you there? Phil Barber, you there?
Hello, yes I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, Phil, how you doing today?
Doing well, how are you?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
I would also like to speak on the Israel-Gaza conflict and just give everyone a little bit more context. I'd like to recommend a documentary series called Europa, The Last Battle. This is a well-made documentary. Last time I looked on IMDb, it had about an 8-star rating, so I'm just going to read the description here quickly for you. Haven't you ever been at least curious as to what the other side of World War II was? Since the mid-20th century, the world has only ever heard one side of the most horrific war in human history. During the 75 years that have now passed, only a single narrative of the great conflict has ever been heard. This oversimplistic narrative totally ignores the previous decades of critical history leading up to World War II, ignores vital information from the actual war years, and outright fabricates lie after lie. We are today living in the world of the victors of that war, and without an objective, rational, and balanced view of our history, we are doomed to repeat the mistakes. After World War II, the victors of the war not only went on to write our history books, infiltrate our media and public education, but even went so far as to criminalize the mere questioning of the official story. This epic documentary gives an overview of how Europe has been shaped in modern history. In it, you will find the secret history, where you will find the real causes of the events. Watch the series and uncover the real root causes of World War II. It will take you on an epic timeline that will transport you back in time and lead you on the journey through the Bolshevik Revolution, the communist attempts to take over Germany, hyperinflation during the Weimar Republic, widespread unemployment and misery, Adolf Hitler's rise to power, World War I and II, all the way up to the modern world. Again, that's Europa, The Last Battle. available at europathelastbattle.net. And the truth fears no investigation.
Okay, next speaker, please.
All right, next speaker is Chad Bastuel.
Chad. Okay, Chad. See there? Chad there?
Hi.
Hello.
Chad Batesville here. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to start, I want to speak on the ceasefire, but before I begin, I'd like to publicly condemn the mayor of Montclair, California.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, and this is why, for shutting down free speech tonight through a series of stalling maneuvers. I mean, this mayor exhibits palpable disdain for his constituents, as well as the Brown Act, and referring to public comments as comedy is a violation of the public trust, and this mayor needs to step down immediately.
I'll think about that. Does that sound good?
Oh, it's funny to you, isn't it? Look at you laughing there, smirking. You look like a merchant. Okay, so regarding the ceasefire, calling for a ceasefire in the genocide of all non-Jews in Palestine is certainly a good start, but it doesn't go nearly far enough. A ceasefire is nothing more than a pause in a genocide. It really is just a hollow gesture to allow human beings with good intentions to feel slightly less enslaved by the Jewish agenda. And how did we get ourselves to this point? How did we allow Jews to enslave us in this horrific Talmudic matrix? Well, there's a book called The Protocols of Zion. Now, there's some controversy about it. The Jews claim that it wasn't written, and then they say, well, it was the version that you're reading is not the right one, and all this kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, Jews have destroyed our society, and all European nations are currently being destroyed by Jews. Our art has become ugly. Porn is free. God has become a joke. Our food is poison. Dads are optional. Politicians are rich. Our money is worthless. Buildings are oppressive.
Have a nice evening. All right, who's next?
All right, this is our final one, June Amer.
You said June or June? Almer? Is it June? you
Hello.
said? Yes, sir. Yeah, hello.
Okay. I'd like to address the mayor, the Weasley little fella in the middle there who said, why don't Israel and Palestine, why don't they all just get along like the blacks and the whites do here in America? Well, sir, I'll have you know the blacks and the whites do not get along here. Every day in this country, 100 white women just reported rapes alone. Raped by non-whites, the black savage creatures from Africa. And you call that getting along, sir? Well, I'll have you know, you're in for a rude awakening. We're at a tipping point, sir. Melting pots boil over, and it's getting pretty hot in here, as Ian Stewart Donaldson once said. And if you think the Palestinians are gonna get along with the Jews, that's even crazier than thinking the whites are gonna get along with the Jews here. It'll
Hey,
never
okay,
work.
bye. That's it. We're done with that. We're done with that crap. Excuse my language. Kind of feel like that was Saturday Night Live, kind of. And the reason why I was kind of acting comic here, because one thing that I learned about life is especially when there's stressful situations, you got to be cool. You got to kick back and be cool. Can't take it seriously. You just try to bring the situation down to it. And don't take people like this very seriously. So I know this is a tough subject that we're talking about, what's happening in Gaza and what's happening in Israel. And I appreciate you being here this evening and talking this evening. I do want to ask, as a city manager, we're going to do the same thing what Claremont did. City manager, can you please prepare a press release that the city council has condemned the racist remarks that were made this evening? Does the council member agree with me with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're directing the city manager to put that out. And then again, As the mayor of the city of Montclair and my council colleagues agree with me, we condemn all the racist remarks that were made this evening. So with that, we're adjourned.